remembering on your own. But
Why don't you just hand me mine back and hand him his back? Okay. There you go. There's your question.
there's no duplications.
There they are.
That's it.
Okay.
All right.
There's
First
no
candidate.
duplications, right?
First candidate's at 8 o'clock.
We'll call the meeting to order. Invite our first candidate in. Yeah, I think we should probably do that.
Yes.
All right, Director Dwayne, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, sir. Please join me as we reaffirm our allegiance to the United States by saying, I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Those that continue to fight for it.
Good morning, and for the record, I'd like to note that the recording process in the back of the room is not part of Mesa Water. I'd like to ask the gentleman to introduce himself, let us know who he's hired by and who he's representing.
I'm Kirill Davidov, and I'm got presented by Regal Court Reporters.
Regal Court Reporters?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning. This must be Ali Sampson?
Samson Alfred.
Samson Alfie,
You
okay.
can call me Sam.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Welcome, and we're pleased that you're here. We've got a few questions to ask, but we're going to give you about 3 minutes to have you tell us about yourself.
Okay.
Speak into the microphone.
I'll start with the
Is it turned on?
I have a bachelor's, master's in mechanical engineering.
No matter what education one has, these microphones seem to be difficult to deal with.
That's fine. Okay, I earned my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering at Cal State Fullerton. I have a doctorate in education from Pepperdine University. As far as my career, I was at Boeing 26 years and other companies, and I did some consulting for Parker Hannifin for a total of 24 months at 2 different divisions. U.S. Army veteran from a long time ago. Project management professional. I had a PE license. However, I'm a PE retired classification at this point, as of earlier this year. As far as experience, I worked with suppliers quite a bit during my career at Boeing. I work with the military customers and other customers, commercial customers as well. I also have experience in control account management, product development, various things. Maybe not all of them are applicable here, but no experience is bad experience. It's always good. That's about all I have to say about myself.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we're going to go through a series of questions that the directors have. So we'll start with Director Fissler, please.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Alfie.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service to our country in the past. Appreciate it very much. My question to you is, what prompted you to apply for the director position here at the Mesa Water Board?
I always wanted to do something in public service, and frankly, I am retired from Boeing, and still wanted other challenges in my life.
Okay.
So that's what prompted me, and I think this is kind of like a community service more than anything.
Very good. Thank you. President Atkinson, was it just one question, or did I do my
Yeah,
two?
let's go through one question at a time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Allen.
Good morning. Could you please describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
Could you restate that a little bit? What the responsibilities are?
How do you understand what it is that the board does?
As far as detail of what the job entails, no. But I don't think that's a big issue. I think after a day or so in the job, I'll be able to solve problems that come up, and I don't think any of you got into the job knowing what the job entailed anyway.
Thank you.
Director Putnam.
Thank you. So, are you aware that this position, if you were appointed, will run out in a few months? You'll be required to run for election, if you so choose, in November, in about a year and a half. And are you prepared to run a vigorous campaign to retain your seat on this board?
Yes, I'm aware that it's an elected position, and yes, I would run a vigorous campaign to remain in the post.
Okay. Thank you. And for myself, I'm curious. One of the responsibilities, I think, comes with attending meetings, and I'm curious why we've had a number of meetings since this position was announced, but I don't recall seeing you attending any of the meetings. Can you tell me why?
I think there was only maybe one meeting, and I think I had other commitments, and I did not attend the meeting. I don't have any overriding, just I had other commitments that night.
Okay. Thank you very much. Director Fissler?
Mr. Alfie, how do you believe that your current skills will contribute to our overall mission and strategic plan?
Well, all of my experience was satisfying the customer, and I realized this providing water for people is a very challenging thing, not only maintaining the system, planning for the future, and Costa Mesa is growing. The population is growing. So as far as my experience, product development, dealing with suppliers, I have a good understanding of what it costs to provide a service and what it costs to maintain. And also, having been a project manager, I work with people, so I have interfaced quite a bit and worked right along with the personnel, whether it was testing or developing or building a simulator. So I think that experience is important. I don't think the job, whatever it is going to be just sitting in the office necessarily. But personally, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and go out in the field a little bit and understand what goes on out there. So I think that's the way I am, and I'll use my experience for that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Director Dwayne? Okay, he's passing on this question, Director Botman.
Thank you. So, just these other preparations for being a director, are you familiar with the concept of the Form 700 and that it requires the complete disclosure of your financial background becomes a public record?
Yes, I don't have any problem with the disclosure of my financial background.
Okay, and for myself, I would like to understand your concept or your understanding of the basic water supply system in California and the role that we as an independent special district play in that system.
As far as where the water comes from, the different sources, I know the different sources would be from Northern California, and also the groundwater is used in this district, various sources. I'm not sure how much desalination plays a part. I'm not sure how to answer that. It's such a broad
Well,
question.
it is, and I'd like to understand your broad knowledge, and I think you described part of it, and I thank you very much. Any other comments from the board? All right, thank you very much for coming, Mr. Alfie. We appreciate it and
Thank you.
look forward to seeing you around the community.
Thanks. Thank you.
You must be Mr. Ron Green?
I'm Ron Green. I have a resume that kind of beeps out my application. I made 4 or 5 copies, but I can give that to anybody.
Thanks.
We won't have time to read them. You can get them afterwards.
Oh yeah, that's just for later reading.
Thank you for providing those, Mr. Green. I'd like to extend your opportunity to take about 3 minutes and give us a description of yourself.
Sure thing, I will. Well, I was born in California in Anaheim, moved away for a short while, came back to Costa Mesa about 29 years ago, and for the last 20 years, my wife and I have had a house here in Costa Mesa. I have a 3- and a 7-year-old girl. Probably since the 7-year-old was born, I've been thinking of some sort of service to Costa Mesa in different capacities, and water's always been on my mind, just because, water's life. My best friend was a combat veteran for 30 years, and he was always hammering into me on marches like water, rehydrate, and so it's something I pound into my kids. But really, I was thinking about it last night, and when I was in the Boy Scouts up in the Brea Backpackers, a long time ago when I was 12 years old, and we all used to go around with our Sierra cups. And whenever you're thirsty, you fill up your canteen up to the mountains with water and Sierra cup. And so when I came back to California, I was talking to one of my buddies who I think was an Eagle Scout, and another buddy who was in the Boy Scouts. He goes, no, they don't let the kids fill up their canteens or use the Sierra cups anymore to drink water. And so that got me thinking. And then when the notice came in the paper, I was like, well, that's Providence. It fell right into my lap. And so I was very excited. Filled it out, went on vacation, and then I got the call when I came back. So here I am. That's the shortest version. I think if you look at my resume, you'll see I have a pretty super strong compliance background, state and federal laws. Look at the law, read the law, figure out what the heck it means, explain it to everybody in the company, figure out how to turn operations into that. Although I have a super strong legal background, or whatever you want to call it, senior counsel at a finance company, I started basically in workflow, mechanization, and operations. That was my first kind of lab, was how to look at a process, mechanize it efficient, make it efficient, mechanize the documents, talk to folks, figure out what they do, make their life easier. And then I just ended off going to law school. So here I am today.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to make note that the recording mechanism in the background is not part of Mesa Water. It's an independent group recording this.
Okay.
And so don't let that make you uncomfortable.
It doesn't.
Okay. Thank you, and we'll go on with questions from the board now. Director Fissler, please.
Okay, well, you sort of covered my question. I'm trying to be consistent with the same questions, but maybe you can elaborate more on it, and if not, then you've answered it. But my question is, what prompted you to apply for the position of director at Mesa Water?
It's that I've literally, like I thought, because I have a 7 and 3-year-old girl. And so you start thinking, okay, PTA, what am I going to do, soccer coach or whatever. And this to me is kind of the best of all worlds, because if you're a PTA, you're out of school district. But this is something that covers the whole district for everybody in Costa Mesa. And it's the future, which if you look at my resume, you see I'm into nipping problems in the bud, finding out what's wrong, solving it for tomorrow. I think if you kind of invest in today, tomorrow's going to be better. So to me, that's where it comes from. I mean, it's the infrastructure, and I like infrastructure, and I like operations, and it's important to everybody in my family who I love. So it was something I was looking for a couple years, and then the mail came. So that sparked me.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Director Dwayne.
Thank you very much. Could you please describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
Well, if the board of directors, to me, it seems to be an executive position, probably more on the policy level, a little bit higher than it is day-to-day machinations. I've read all the policy statements from the website and the position, and it's exactly what it seems to be, a strategy and grand strategy rather than operations and tactics. That's my shortest understanding of it. It's not unlike what I do in my job now, working with our board of directors and working on kind of the executive and compliance level, planning for tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's my short answer. And also Roger's Rules of Order.
Thanks.
Director Bachman.
Thank you. So these are some practical questions about
Okay.
being a director. Are you prepared to run a vigorous campaign? Because this is an appointed position, but normally the positions are elected.
Mm-hmm.
Our director resigned
Mhm.
recently, and in 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
there will be a November, if I could ask our district secretary, am I correct in this, November of 2018? November of 2018, there will be another election,
Mhm.
and whether you choose to run or not,
Mhm.
that will be the elected director who is then elected.
Mhm.
And then because of the timing to get back in the normal election cycle,
Mhm.
2 years later,
Mhm.
the person will have to run again. Are you prepared to campaign vigorously for the position, both in 18 months and then again in 2 years?
I mean, the first answer is yes. It's something I actually thought about back in the day, like when I was looking at city council positions. It's things I've thought about. So the short answer is yes. A long time ago, I think when I was still in law school, my aunt ran for assembly in that 3-way runoff a long time ago. And so, yes, I've put up signs in the middle of the night. I know how that goes. Talking to the press, the positions, the debates. So when I say yes, I am aware of what that actually means.
Okay, thank you.
For myself, I'd like to understand if you were interested in this position and you knew about it, then there have been a number of meetings of the board
Mhm.
since the announcement came out. I don't recall seeing you in the audience at,
No, you
at
haven't
those
seen me.
meetings, and can you tell me why?
The first notice that I saw was the letter when it said submit the application, and then I promptly left the country for 3 weeks to go to Germany. So that's the most recent reason. Prior to that, it hadn't occurred to me that an election cycle was coming up or how it really works. So there's
Okay.
the shortest answer.
All right, thank you very much.
But I saw that there's a lot of Tuesday, Thursday, and I think Friday meetings. But I saw the calendar and I saw that they were all missed by me.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Director Chisler.
Ron, how do you believe your current skill set will contribute to our district's mission and strategic plan? It sounds like you've looked over our documents.
I think just the way I'm wired is read state regulations, read federal regulations, and obviously read city ordinances and county ordinances, turn them into plain language. Then, once that's done, put that to one side, go figure out what we do on a day-to-day basis, make sure we're in compliance in that way. And that's the first step of understanding what are the regulations that they want us to do, what do we actually want to do, and then what are our policy goals. It's kind of what I've been doing my entire life, is looking at things at a strategic level. So I don't know if that's a really good answer. If you want to Do you want a specific example?
No, that actually goes straight to the
Okay.
question. Thank you very much.
That's kind of how I'm wired.
Thank you.
I believe Director Dwayne is only asking a single question.
Okay.
So we'll go with Director Bachmeier.
So one of the other practical questions about being a board member is, have you heard of Form 700, and are you prepared to financially disclose your entire financial life to the public?
Form 700 in specific, I haven't, but I do know there's financial disclosures, and my financial life is not that exciting, so I have nothing really to hide.
And
My second question would be, Mesa Water is a retail water supplier. We're a part of a large system here in
Right.
California, but we are also a independent special district. Can you tell me what that means to you?
Well, I do know that we have groundwater, so if I see independent special district, I would think that it means that everybody gets water from a main source, but there's certain people who have special access to water, so that's what that would mean to me, but I could be completely wrong.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the board? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Green.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
rather like speed dating this interview process. It's almost like speed dating.
Yeah.
Schedule, so we do have the next candidate in attendance if you'd like to move
Yeah,
forward.
sure.
Okay.
Yes,
Mr. Morelli?
Mr. Morelli?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to be early.
Yeah.
That's the way we roll.
All right.
Well, let me start off by saying that the recording equipment in the back of the room is not part of Mesa Water. It's not something that we hired. They're independent. I think you heard the comments earlier. So the process is we're going to give you about 3 minutes to present yourself, and then the board's going to ask you a few questions, and that'll be pretty much the size of it. Now, I think you've heard most of the questions, but let's go ahead and proceed. You want to tell us about yourself? And
Good morning. Al Morelli, resident of Costa Mesa for over 35 years. First, I want to thank you for inviting me to apply for the appointed position. If you look at my application, you notice that I have extensive educational background. I have more education than on the normal. Also, I have extensive experiences in government and the like. And I'm not here to emphasize my employment history because I'm not applying for a job. You have excellent staff that have some of that qualification. But more or less, I want to bring some of the life experiences that I have working with government agencies. I work for Anaheim Public Utility. I work for the MTA. Also, I consider myself academic scholar. I'm a former university professor. I taught at the top universities in the area. But most important is how I bring all these experiences together to help and maintain the excellence organization that Mesa Water have. It's no doubt in my mind, Mesa Water is one of an excellent organization, and as a water member, my job is to emphasize that excellence and build on the excellence. But most important, I'm a collaborator, I'm a team player. I teach team management at USC, but also regarding my involvement with the water district. I'm a graduate of your study program. As a matter of fact, I have a souvenir from it. So I'm very familiar with the water district. I visited your facility. I visited the one on, the one that you have by the freeway. So I'm very familiar with the operation. I'm very familiar with the city at large. But one thing I like to emphasize my experiences with the city. A few years back, long time ago, I said it when I was young and more energetic, I got asked by the city manager, Alan Roder, and Ed Fawcett, to find ways to promote the city of Costa Mesa. So I asked them what kind of budget they have, and they say zero. I say, okay, I can work with it. So with that said, what I did is I formulated a program called Shop Costa Mesa. And with that program was to emphasize that if you shop in Costa Mesa, the revenue of the sales, which is 1% of the total sale, will go to the city coffer. So with that said, I'd like to share with you if you want to get some of these. to the board, at least as a way to describe it. What I did is I formulated a program that I got involved, the city as a group, the Chamber of Commerce, and the business at large, but also I included the school district. And the emphasis was, if you shop in Costa Mesa, it's good for the city. So with that said, I raised enough money, and I created what I call an essay program, which is all the school districts were involved, and I asked all the students to write an essay why it's important to shop in Costa Mesa. And then I worked with Orange Coast College, to the English department, and I brought their students and their professor to judge the essay. And every school have a winner, and every winner got $100, and then the teacher who supported the student got $100. But most important is, when the student were writing the essays, the parents were involved. So that's really was part of it. And as a matter of fact, we have the flyer, and the pamphlet was on the utility water bill. So we got to be involved. We raised enough money. We supported the program. And one of the things that was going on at that time, and I just shared it with you, is POG, which was like the spinner these days. Kids were very hot about the POG. So we made a special POG, and we emphasized at that time the graffiti elimination. So there was a graffiti problem in the city. So with that, we emphasized not just Shop Costa Mesa, but more or less is to eliminate the graffiti at all, and emphasize why the kids need to be aware of it. So the Shop Costa Mesa program, unfortunately, nobody is leading it, but I believe that I'm the founder, and they still use my logo all over the place. So that's really part of the history that I have is, I've known to make things look easy. People tell me, Al, you make things look easy, because plain and simple, that's my industrial engineering background, is how to find ways to work smarter, not harder, but also is none of us is smarter than all of us. And that's why I believe I bring to the table is the team and the collaboration effort. And with all of us here, I believe we could maintain the mission of the Mesa Water District.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And with that, we'll go to the director's questions. Director Fissler.
Good morning, Mr. Morelli. Thank you for applying. My question to you is, what prompted you to apply to be a director here on the Board of Directors at Mesa Water District?
Well, I've been interested in, volunteering my time to serve the common good for the city. And part of my approach, as I said, I've been involved with a lot of different profit and non-profit organizations. In my younger days, I used to be the board of director for YES, Youth Employment Service. I volunteered to work for, Engineering Council. I was on the board. I got involved with a lot of different things, but specifically with the water, I'm a graduate of the water study program. Me and my wife enjoyed it. We came over here. We learned about the water, and my wife always interested in the water. Her parents were the founder of the Agora Water Districts near Hidden Hills. So we're always interested in water. We know water is very critical, very important. And I've been a local visitor here. I'm always interested in, how to make the city better, and that's really my approach. That's the reason I came forward. And I care about the city, I care about my surroundings, and I want to help.
Thank you very much. Director Dwayne.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming. Could you please describe for the board your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
Well, I read your mission statement, which is very classical. It's nothing really. It's classical, which is to serve and protect. And with that is we want to emphasize is how we want to serve and we want to protect. The role of the board is to govern, to provide the oversight. You have excellent staff. You don't need another engineer telling the staff what to do. More or less is you need somebody to provide the oversight and how we want to move forward with the mission and how we want to maintain the excellence that we already have. So as a board member, my role is to work with the rest of the board member to find ways to enhance the role and the mission of the district, but also how to work smarter and how to emphasize the value of water. Water is a commodity that we all cherish, but we pay more money for our cable bill than we pay for water. So it's very important to bring that value back so people understand that this is very very valuable commodity. We need to maintain it. We need to find ways to make it better, and we need to make it more accessible. And we want to be sure it's healthy for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Bachmann?
So, in the past, there have been a few elections in Division 3, and I haven't seen you run for the office. Are you prepared to campaign vigorously in 18 months and then again 2 years after that? For
The answer is yes. Talking about political, I'm very familiar with the political environment, and I really don't want to emphasize, I got involved with a lot of campaigns, what we call it behind the scene. I campaigned very vigorously for Jim Silva when he ran for county supervisor, and I helped John Morlock when in his early days. But most important, I don't want to emphasize, I'm a Republican. It's not a secret. I'm a registered Republican. And I used to be the president of the Costa Mesa Republican Assembly in my younger days. So I'm very familiar with the politics. I could get involved if it's needed. But most important is, is really to serve right now. And time will tell if I want to move forward thereafter.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for my question, my first question that I've been addressing to the other candidates is why haven't they been attending meetings? But I've noticed you've had a specific interest and have been attending meetings, so I'd like to thank you for that. And ask you, are you familiar with California special districts? And can you
Yes, I am.
describe the role of the special district in the water industry?
I'm very familiar with it. As a matter of fact, and the record will speak for itself, I applied twice for LAFCO. And unfortunately, I was not selected for LAFCO. So I'm very familiar with the districts in general, very familiar with the water district. As a former employee of the city of Anaheim, we used to have our own utility, electric and water, and I was involved in that. And I worked with a lot of different agencies at large. When I was with the MTA, the MTA covered the whole county, so I was quite involved with a lot of different agencies and cities and the like. But to emphasize that, when I was with the Orange County Engineering Council, and during February we have what we call the Engineering Week. And with that said, is we need to promote engineering in general. So I formulated a campaign that I want to every city in the Orange County and also Greater Los Angeles at large, and have them to have a declaration that February is the month for the engineers. So I'm quite familiar with, how to work with the districts, how to work with the cities, and how to work with other agencies. So, I like to build on that experience to share it with the district here at large.
Thank you, sir. Director Fissler.
Mr. Morelli, some of your comments have overtaken this question, but I'm going to go ahead and again, could you probably give it again since you probably have even more to offer, I guess. How do you believe your current skills will contribute to our district's mission and strategic plan?
Well, in the short, I hate to keep bragging about myself. I mean, really, I'm not here in the bragging side. But as a university scholar, academic scholar, one of my favorite classes was business strategy, which is the capstone class for all business major before they graduate. And I taught that at Cal State Long Beach, and I'm very familiar with business strategy. I've been practicing and I've been teaching it. So it's more or less to build on that strategy, which is, you have short-term strategy, you have long-term strategy. So the challenge is how you want to combine both and how you want to reach the ultimate goals that you want to achieve. Basically mission statement is, what we believe in. And the most important part is not what we believe in, but how we practice it. And my role is, I'm the doer. I like to practice it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Director Bachmann.
Thank you. So, you've been in the audience for the last few questions, so I'm going to ask a slightly different one. And that is, are you familiar with the phrase, practice perpetual infrastructure renewal and improvement? And if you are, what does that mean to you?
Well, what it means is you need to, you have structures, you have facilities that you have to find ways to maintain the capital expenditure that you have. Just like everything else, you have a car, the car needs to be maintained. You need to change the fuel on a regular basis. You need to rotate the tires. Same thing is when you're running at water districts, you have equipment, you have facilities. You want to be sure that you maintain it and you move forward with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as I indicated, I think you've answered both of my questions in the course of going through this. So do you have anything else you'd like to offer the board as new information?
Well, what I like to offer is that, I'm here, I don't really have any political agenda. My purpose is plain and simple. Teaching used to be a hobby of mine. I retired from teaching. I run a management consulting firm, and I'm quite busy with that, but I have plenty of time that I offer to the districts. And I'm self-employed, so my time is very flexible. I could attend meetings. I could work with the staff if it's needed. I want to serve, plain and simple, and I'm here to support your mission, goals, and objective, but also to enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Costa Mesa at large.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Morelli. We appreciate your applying and taking the time to come in this morning to go through the interview process.
Thank you, and you have a great day.
You too, sir.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to let you know that the recording of the proceedings here today is not part of Mesa Water. They're hired by an independent company to be here and record the process. We're not sure exactly why. We're unfamiliar with the company that has hired them. So don't let that bother you. Please be comfortable while you're here.
Used to this.
Take a seat.
Thank you.
The way the process is going to work, we're going to give you about 3 minutes to describe yourself, and then we're going to go through a series of questions that each of the directors have for you. It's not a long process, but feel free to share your answers. We have enough time to give you a chance to help us get to know you. Thank you, sir. Would you go ahead?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm really honored and appreciate. I'm Waleed Qazi. I have a master's and PhD in geological sciences. I'm also a registered professional geologist with the state of California, and I taught an environmental engineering course at UCI Extension for over 10 years. I opened my own environmental consulting business 21 years ago with my headquarters right here in Costa Mesa. My annual revenue from a business is about $7 million, and I have 30 employees, many of whom work right out of this Costa Mesa headquarters. With that brief introduction, I'd like to focus on a few of your strategic goals and how I could be part of that, and to round off my few minutes of introduction. So I was going to talk about all 7, but instead of 3 minutes, I'm going to reduce it to 3 and just arbitrarily choose those. So your first goal is provide a safe, abundant, and reliable water supply. This is obviously one of the most important goals you can have. And it involves projects like the well automation and rehabilitation project that was recently awarded to Pacific Hydrotech and Corallo Engineers. Well, wells are what I do in my business. I understand. And I deal with engineering firms all the time. So I have a very good understanding of many of the facets of your main line of business. Your second goal is practice perpetual infrastructure renewal and improvement. Well, I understand the district has planned over the next 5 years to spend between $25 and $36 million in infrastructure such as pipelines, valves, wells, and reservoirs. Again, these are the very basic elements of the business that I'm involved in, even though they are for entirely different purposes, but the infrastructure is infrastructure. So I'm very familiar with the planning, the permitting, the bidding, the design, the oversight, and implementation of these structures on a regular basis. And the last one I'll talk about in the interest of time is provide outstanding customer service. I understand your main clients are like the country club, the various parks in this city, and the South Coast Plaza, which I think is home to one of the premier organizations that sets the standards for customer service in this country, which is Nordstrom. The personal shopper at Nordstrom for a long time for that very reason, and that's the type of service that we should always give. And I will make my case here by saying that my first client, Delta Airlines, has 21 years ago, is still my client, and I have never ever lost a client during my 21 years of business. You understand as a service company that you cannot keep retaining clients without having very good customer service. So I think that's probably about 3 minutes, so I'm going to stop here even though I have more to say. I'll let you.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we'll move to the questions by the directors. Director Fissler, if you please.
Yes, Waleed, thank you so much for applying and coming here this morning. Appreciate it. I could do a joke about Delta Airlines, but I won't.
I could do many.
My question to you is, what prompted you to apply for the position of director here on the board at Mesa Water?
I've thrived and lived in this community for the majority of my life, and it's that time of my life that I feel like I need to give back to the community. And I actually stated this in my cover letter, that not only am I interested to provide this service, I would be very willing and happy to provide this on a voluntary basis and not for any financial gain. I'm blessed with what I have and I do not need financial benefits. I really want to give back to the community. I feel like my background and experience in the business that I'm in, both my professional background as well as my business background, is a very good combination of the skills that you need for a position like this.
Thank you very much.
All right, Director Dwayne, if you please. Thank you very much, sir. Would you please describe your understanding of the role of the Board of Directors?
Sure. Board of Directors is sort of like what I would call the ship of the captain. The ship is sailing, everybody is doing their individual jobs. The Board of Directors has to make sure that it's headed in the right direction, that it's following the compass, that it's achieving its strategic goals, which is the reason why I try to focus on the strategic goals, and in terms of how I wanted to make my presentation. So I feel like the Board of Directors will look at major issues, whether they're legal, they're administrative, they're implementation, awarding contracts, and make decisions and make recommendations about how the district should proceed. And the board will meet once a month, and there's 3 other meetings that happen every month. As a director, we should attend as many of those as possible, because every one of them is voted on, so the Board of Directors has a direct influence on the direction and business practices of the district.
Great, thank you. Thank you, sir. Director Bachmiller, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you mentioned, you have a consulting firm in the city, and you've been here for many years. If you were appointed to this position, are you aware that this appointment would last until November of 2018, and that at that time there will be an election? Are you prepared to campaign vigorously for that election? And then are you aware that 2 years after that, and this is because of the election cycle, so that the divisions, 3 of the divisions are elected during presidential year elections and 2 are elected in the off year. This office happens to be in the presidential year, but because the person resigned early, we ended up having to have this situation where we can appoint, but then the next election has to be elected, and then after that, then they get back on the normal cycle. So you have to run for office twice in 3 years.
Yeah, and when Mr. Dewan asked me that question about why I applied, I didn't necessarily say this, but believe it or not, one of my interests in applying for this position is the challenge of making a campaign and getting myself out and known in the very community that I have lived and worked for my entire life. So I feel like I have the resources and the background that are necessary. And with a position like this directorship, it would be a very good entry for me to be able to get into that. I have a gentleman right down the road, in my own neighborhood that's in the city council. So I'm very interested and very much willing to do all it takes. I mean, I'm going to take out all the campaign stops. to continue to try and perform this duty.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And for myself, if you are so interested in the position on the board, I'm curious why we haven't seen you attending several of the meetings.
It is probably one of my weaknesses as I sit here and apply for this. I should have, come here if I was really interested. I just wasn't aware there's an opening. My understanding, I looked into this earlier, I think a few years ago, and my understanding was these positions do not come open very often at all. So I was actually, the last couple of years, I've been kind of dabbling and looking at how I can get involved. So when I got this letter and this opening came up, I started looking into it and I became very interested. I have to admit that's one of my weaknesses of sitting here and applying for this position.
All right. Thank you, sir. Director Fissler.
Mr. Kazi, you've gone over this, but this will give you more time to expand your comments. How do you believe your current skills will contribute to our district's mission and strategic plan? And I can tell you know what our strategic plan is.
Thank you so much for giving me that for that question, because I couldn't, I'll just tell you a couple of them, and then maybe I don't want to take up too much time. But your third goal is be financially responsible and transparent. The water district is been the top-rated water agency in terms of per capita expenses. And it also has a AAA rating because of its good financial policies. However, there is a big challenge looming ahead in terms of increasing water supply costs, decrease in water sales, and a projected flat water demand. So this might necessitate a rate adjustment. I've actually been involved with gas companies that go through the same process of applying for and getting rate adjustment, and I think I'm very familiar with that process, and that's just one aspect of my background that would be helpful for your strategic goals. Another one of your strategic goals is increase public awareness about Mesa District and water. Well, throughout my career and professional life, I've been very involved in these kind of public campaigns. Preparation of fact sheets, holding public meetings, making presentations, and generally being able to convince public of the need for certain projects that some may not be supportive of because of, as various individual reasons. So those, and then one more I'll add is attract and retain skilled employees. I have my first employee from 20 years ago is still an employee with me. I have 10 employees that have been with me for over 15 years and another 8 that have been with me for over 10 years. I mean, that should tell you that I understand how to attract and retain skilled employees. So I feel like my background is very well suited for the kind of things to implement your strategic goal.
Thank you. I don't believe Director Dwayne has a second question, so we'll go with Director Buckmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. So one of the facets of being an elected or appointed official in the state of California is this tricky little thing called the Form 700 that makes your formerly private life public. Are you aware of this form and are comfortable with, since you have a business and exposing your business and its finances to the public scrutiny?
Absolutely. I have financial statements and things that I share with my own minority shareholders, and so and they're reviewed by CPA, and I pay my taxes, and I pay my Mesa bill sometimes. Yeah, so I would have no problem opening my life up. It's an open book. I have nothing to hide, and I actually look forward to it. Like I said, I'm very interested in getting out into the public, and that's really what I want to do with my life, at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for my second question, Mesa Water is a retail water agency, and Can you describe your understanding of how the independent special district's role in that industry applies?
Well, from what I understand is, Mesa Water District is part of a larger organization that kind of maintains and provides, obtains, stores, and provides water to both businesses and individual customers in the whole. I would say this region. So in addition to the State Water Resource Control Board that lays out the basin plans, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board that implements the laws and regulations that are, the Orange County Water District is a company that, Mesa District has a close relationship with as part of a sort of a supplier, and the Mesa Water District is the retailer that purchases the water from them and then provides it to the individual entities that use water. So I understand there's complicated, agreements and sharing of resources and sharing of costs, and you have to figure out how the per acre cost is and share that. So I don't know all the details, obviously, but I understand overall that, Mesa District is sort of a one spoke in a wheel that basically helps to bring in water from various different sources and provide that as a safe and efficient and cost-effective manner to the people that actually use the water.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other comments from the board? With that, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Kazi, for coming in this morning and taking the time to let us know that you're interested in joining the board.
And
Thank you very
I
much.
will certainly try to continue to attend these meetings from now on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Next person here.
No, is the next person here?
You guys want to give the temperature?
Cooler the better, good temperature. Cooler the better.
Just about on time with that. We're still only 10 minutes early, right?
Was the sliding wall the idea that you would stay here and have a closed session?
No, the sliding wall was to pull off the board room for when there were public meetings here, like this is the room would be used for a public meeting. Keep the public out of here.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen.
You must be Mr. Davis.
I am.
Thank you for joining us. I'd like to share with you that the recording equipment and staff in the back of the room are not part of Mesa Water. It's an outside independent firm has brought them in to record the proceedings today. So don't let that make you uncomfortable. We're a friendly group up here, and like to let you know that we're going to give you about 3 minutes to tell us about yourself, and then the next step would be going through the questions that the directors have for you, and that will be the process this morning. So with that, Mr. Davis, would you go ahead and describe yourself?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Board members, I am a resident of the city of Costa Mesa for this current period, about 17 years. I lived here for about a year and a half back in the 1970s. Both times, I believe, were in Division 3. I am a longtime staff member of Orange County Water District. I work in water quality. I'm laboratory supervisor within the Advanced Water Quality Assurance Laboratory. And I have been very blessed to have had my vision within and my contribution within Orange County Water District broadened over the last few years from strictly and specifically laboratory water quality, and that's specifically inorganic laboratory, so It's trace metals, minerals, microbiology, organic nitrogen, cyanide, hexavalent chromium, perchlorate, and that sort of thing. But recently they've allowed me to broaden my scope to laboratory information management systems, which that's a type of local area network specifically for the laboratory. I've been involved with the Public Relations Department. We have our beautiful H2O Learning Center there in the administration building, and I was one of the laboratory staff consulting on the laboratory portion of that. I've also been trained for giving tours, and I have, not recently, but I have given a couple of outside speeches. I'm a member of Toastmasters International. I have the Distinguished Toastmaster designation. I attended the Water Interest Study Group, I'm sorry, I hope I'm getting that name right, with Mesa Water several years ago, and enjoyed that process and the presentations that we received over the several weeks of that, and the tour of the Water Reliability Center on, and I'm not sure if it's pronounced Geisler or Gisler Street over there.
Nobody knows the answer.
A beautiful facility, and I am not involved, I'm not a local businessman, I'm not a geologist, I'm not an engineer. I don't own real estate currently within the city. I formerly owned real estate in Mission Viejo and was a ratepayer and customer of Santa Margarita Water District.
I'm sorry.
I'm not involved in local politics such as mayoral or city council, but I feel I would bring a fresh perspective, being a technical type person and a longtime government employee or staff member, if you will. And I'm always interested in giving back. I feel like I have been blessed through my life, and I've received a lot, so I want to give back wherever I can. When I saw the vacancy announcement for Mesa Water, I was naturally interested.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move along to the questions from the directors and ask Director Fissler to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for applying and coming here this morning. What prompted you, you've already mentioned you got the letter, but what prompted you to apply to be a board member of a water district? Obviously, you have the skill at the Orange County Water District as an employee, but what prompted you to become a board member?
I'm very interested in water. I think in my cover letter, I was a little tongue-in-cheek, and I said water's in my blood. And when I do give the opening presentation for the tours at the water district, and I do give tours of the laboratory, very detailed tours of our laboratory facility, but they broadened me to include tours, the opening presentation of tours of the entire facility there. I often ask, how long could you live if you didn't have water to drink? It's about 3 to 9 days before someone passes away from lack of water. Human body, sometimes there's exaggerations, but I think it's safe to say human body is over 50% water. So water's been important to me. Both my father and my uncle were active on water boards in the county of Kern, where I grew up. And I just have a wide variety of interests, and water's one of them. I always want to be diversifying, learning new things. I want to keep learning things and keep contributing and stretching. A famous author once said, a man's reach should exceed his grasp. So I like to reach a little further every time, and I'm not always successful, but sometimes I am. And when I am, I do tend to stick with things. If I start something, I finish it, and I try to give it my best effort. So water seemed like a natural and logical outgrowth of where I have come to at this stage.
Thank you. Director Dwayne.
My question, please describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors.
The board of directors of any organization will set policy, and they're going to be carrying out the mission and the vision of whatever organization it is. My understanding is that each member is representing their geographic area. This is not a type of board where the members are elected at large. So there's going to be one set of responsibilities to the district as a whole, another set for the members or the ratepayers and customers in the geographic area. They have a responsibility to be good stewards of the natural resources and the imported resources that the city of Costa Mesa has been blessed with, and the funds and physical resources that the ratepayers, the taxpayers, and any granting agencies have provided. So I think it's mainly to be good stewards, to get the most bang for the buck, and to operate in a very above the board, high value way for the organization, and to hire the best staff members as well. I think that's a very important thing, to hire the best staff members and then trust them to make staff and operational decisions.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And Director Bachmiller.
Thank you. So you are aware that this currently is being an appointed position, however it's normally elected. And if you are appointed, the next general election in November of 2018 will be an election. And then, and again, in November 2020 to get back on the normal election cycle. This division will have an election. So there'll be 2 elections in 3 years and an appointment process. So are you prepared, and have you experience in campaigning vigorously for public office?
I have no experience in campaigning for public office. I am a quick study. I wanted to say that in response to probably many questions you have, since I don't have experience on this type of board. I'm a quick study. I'm naturally introverted, to be quite honest, but I'm also a gregarious person. I'm a friendly person. I would be willing to not be a caretaker or someone who's serving just for the year and a half or so. I would be willing to campaign for re-election as long as I thought that I could keep contributing to the board and that I was making a contribution. I want to add value more than I'm taking out. I always want to give more. And if I did feel at some point in the future, should I be lucky enough or blessed enough to get the appointment, that I was no longer able to contribute or that someone else could do it better, I would be willing to step aside or not run. But I am not looking to be appointed to this position to just hold it for the period through the end of 2018. No, sir.
All right, thank you. And for myself, we've had a number of meetings since this announcement has come out, and I'm curious if you're interested in the position on the board, why it is that you have not attended the board meetings of late.
I did attend the regular board meeting earlier this month, and I signed in. I did not make a statement at that meeting. I noticed that 2 of the candidates did make statements, but I did attend. I've just returned from a vacation. I've been out of town for about the last 8 days or so. So I would certainly be remiss in appearing here and expecting to be appointed when I'm not. I'm not showing interest, as you're pointing out. So yes, I would. If the decision were to be continued until September 5th, and there were public meetings between now and then, I would definitely be making an effort to attend this.
All right. Thank you, sir. Director Fissler, please.
Yeah, Jeremy, how do you believe your current skills will contribute to our district's mission and strategic plan?
Well, I don't think water is used for things other than drinking, but drinking is one of the most important aspects. So the quality of the water is paramount as far as its use for drinking. There are other options for water reuse for irrigation and such, where there's a second set of distribution pipes, such as from Orange County Water District's Green Acres project. And of course in Irvine they do something similar. So I think delivering good quality water is very important, and having worked actually hands-on for almost 2/3 now of my adult life in water quality, I feel that I'm an advocate, a legitimate and an advocate who can be believed in that area. I do personally drink tap water at home, and you said I'm sorry earlier, when I lived in Santa Margarita Water District, sorry that water was not palatable to me. However, Mesa Water, and when I'm at the office in the city of Fountain Valley, I do drink tap water. So I feel I can be an advocate if there is a question. And I think on the board, I'm not going to appear to the eye of the public as adding diversity to the board if I'm blessed enough to be chosen. But as far as expertise, I don't know that there's someone who has 40 years of hands-on laboratory experience who's on the board currently or who is applying. So I think that's adding diversity as far as interest, expertise, and knowledge. Plus, in my years of being at the Water District, I talked to a lot of people in geology, engineering, administration, and I do absorb things like a sponge. I am a quick study, so I know something about the other aspects of delivering water. Also, I have a lapsed water treatment certificate from the California Health Department, if that's any additional points in my favor.
Thank you. All right. Director Dwayne isn't asking a second question, so we'll go with Director Buckmiller.
Thank you. So, what does the orderly replacement of capital facilities mean to you? I didn't ask my Form 700 question because you're familiar with those government employees. So, what does the orderly replacement of capital facilities mean to you?
What it means to me, I do have a master's degree in public administration. However, that was from many years ago. My concentration was in finance, but I don't expect myself to remember anything from that. What it means to me is that an organization consists of the human capital, the operating expenses, there'll be a balance sheet for operation, and then there'll be capital expenses. The capital expenses will be buildings and large equipment and water management facilities. Those do wear out. They have a part of the operating expenses would be, of course, maintenance of those, but particularly with vehicles and such, those wear out, and sometimes large machinery in my laboratory instrumentation, even buildings become obsolete. And so the sources of funding come in. There will be generally operations and capital expenses are held separately. And it's necessary to maintain a sustainable cycle of replacement of the capital items. So I hope I'm answering you as best as I can with my background, but it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be giving the ratepayers the most for their money, and it needs to be maintaining adequate facilities and excellent service to the ratepayers. So one does not want to have the infrastructure all in need of replacement at the same time. It needs to be replaced on a cycle. There are people who have expertise in that area, and I'm sure that there are some on the staff here. So it needs to be done in a sustainable manner and using the ratepayers and taxpayers' dollars to the best effect.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As I'm sure you're aware, Mesa Water is a retail water agency, and can you share your knowledge of the significance of the independent special district role that Mesa Water plays?
Some cities have a water department within the city, under the city council. Mesa Water is an independent special district similar to Orange County Water District, but within, well, it does extend beyond the bounds of the city limits of Costa Mesa. I like government that's close to the people. I'm an advocate of limited government, and I'm an advocate of intelligent government, intelligent regulation, and the government that's closest to the people who are being served. I think they're served best. I think people who live within the service area, and I think you can have water service within a city managed by the city council or directed by the city council. That's good, but an independent water district, I think, is it's a good alternative, and I like specialization in this case. I think water is so important. City councils have many, many, many responsibilities, and their attention is drawn in many different directions. I like the focused aspect of water special district, focusing on local water. And I do want to say also in one of my answers that I like Mesa's focus on local supplies and using the colored water resources and minimizing the dependence on imported water, where you get the multi-county, large imported water districts involved. I like keeping it close to home.
Thank you, sir. And with that, are there any other comments from the board members?
Just thank you.
Okay. Mr. Davis, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time today to join us and put in your application and your responses to our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Morning.
Morning.
Oh, you're on. I think you just press the green button. Or there you go.
Morning, Mr. Nelson.
Good morning, Director Atkinson.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We welcome you. And we'd like to let you know that the recording in the back of the room is not part of Mesa Water's process today. It is an outside independent activity.
Okay.
But don't let that make you nervous. We're here to try and help you be comfortable and enjoy the process.
Fair enough.
So to describe the process to you, we're going to give you about 3 minutes to describe yourself and potentially some of your qualifications for the board. 3 minutes isn't enough, I'm sure, to cover all of that. But then we're going to switch over and the board will be asking some questions as well. When the board finishes questioning you, we may give you an opportunity to say a few more things, but we may not, depends, if the board has some questions.
Great.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. 3 minutes to describe yourself to us.
Great. Well, my family and I, we moved to Costa Mesa in 2013. We, like a lot of young professionals, have bounced around different cities, different jobs. However, both my wife and I grew up in Orange County, and now that we're back, our roots are firmly planted. We purchased our home from the original owner, and we really feel that sense of continuity, and we look forward to raising our family here in Costa Mesa. And as I mentioned in my cover letter, starting to get more involved in the community now that we know this is our home for the long term. We're also members of the Hillcrest Swim and Tennis Club. It's been really gratifying to see in that neighborhood, Hillcrest in particular, a lot of young families move in as people start to raise their families there. And I think that's one of the key reasons I submitted my application is I felt, having a young family, having that perspective might be a demographic or a perspective that's underrepresented on the board now that Director Temianka has submitted his resignation. And of course, that's not the only reason I'm here today, but I thought that was worth mentioning. On the professional level, my education is in accounting. I studied at Brigham Young University, which is consistently a top 3 accounting program. And I did work in pure accounting for some time with an investment bank based in Las Vegas. For my last 2 positions, about the last 8 years, I've been in operations, which as much as I love accounting and finance, I was glad to kind of have a more rounded experience, a true business experience. My current position is with a technology company. I'm an executive there. It's based in Lake Forest. We perform mobile device customization and software development for companies or organizations that are trying to integrate mobility. Long story short, somebody that maybe want to do something that was paper-based or desktop-based and put it onto an iPad or something comparable. I really run the gamut. I have a lot of departments that report to me there, including finance, HR, and the operations as well. I work directly for the CEO and founder, and we've taken it from really what I would call more of like a small to medium to a true medium-sized company. That was a similar role I performed in my previous position. It's a Hollywood catering company. They do the food for movies and TV shows. You'd think that's kind of a niche, but you wouldn't believe the money that's involved in that. And same thing, it was 2 gentlemen that owned the company. They were on the cusp of going from kind of a small to medium, and then when I left, it was firmly in kind of the medium company size thing. So that's been enjoyable to have a role that's kind of a Swiss Army knife, where I'm not just doing any one thing at any one time. Some of my specific skill sets that I think could be beneficial to the board and to the ratepayers of the Mesa Water District are, of course, my background in finance and accounting. My current role, I've really had a lot of exposure to technology and how technology can, benefit an organization. And I think it's just a requirement to be nimble in the 21st century. And then also the fact that I have, sat in hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews and really gotten to know candidates through my HR reporting to me function. So I really feel I have a well-rounded business background and a proven track record of joining an organization and seeing it only become better, whereas at the same time not necessarily rocking the boat. I want to stress that I'm familiar with going into a conversation, having a well-researched and well-founded opinion, but having an open-minded opinion. And if the consensus is one that differs from my view, I'm going to work just as passionately to make sure that the consensus decision becomes the reality and not just latch on to my agenda or my personal belief. And I think that's something that could also benefit the board and the ratepayers of the Mesa Water District.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Director Fissler, would you like to lead off, please?
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Director.
Thank you for applying. I did read your cover letter, so the question I'm going to ask, you did put a few lines in to answer part of this, but this will give you a chance to expound more. So what prompted you to apply for the board of directors position here at Mesa Water? And like I said, I did read about your friend and the recycling, but if there's other issues.
I will freely admit that I had no aspirations to run through for the board seat in any of the election cycles, which I've already been a resident here in Costa Mesa. So it was the letter, and I thought, wow, that's a heck of a thing. I had read in the Daily Pilot about Director Temianka's resignation, but I wasn't sure how the process to fill the seat would transpire. And so I basically read it, digested that information. I actually spoke with my boss, the CEO of my company. I said, hey, there's this thing I'm thinking about doing. There would be a time commitment involved. And he encouraged me to do it. He said, it wouldn't be an issue. I've gotten to the point in my career where I have some flexibility in my schedule. I discussed it with my wife. First and foremost, I discussed it with my wife to make sure that, if I were to, have the trust placed in me to join the board, that I would have her blessing and her support. And then again, as I mentioned in my cover letter, we were just very fortunate. We moved next door to a gentleman that we've become close friends with in Mike Carey. I don't know if anybody knows him, but he's very involved in the city of Costa Mesa, and it was an example to me. So he and I discussed it. I believe he does know some people that work here for the district, and he said, one man's humble opinion, but you'd do a good job. Perhaps you'd be a good fit. So that was sort of the thing that tipped the scale. And so I drafted a cover letter, started to research what it would entail, and that's why I submitted.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Director Dwayne, if you please.
Thank you. Would you please describe your understanding of the functioning of the role of the board of directors? Not the functioning, the role of the board.
Sure. As I understand it, it's kind of like being on the city council. The voters are going to be your boss, right? If you're if you're a CEO of a company, the board of directors are your boss, and then the shareholders are the board's boss. with a district like this, the ratepayers are the boss of the board of directors. The board of directors are here to oversee the full-time employees to make sure that the water is safe and that the rates are fair and that the short-term and long-term goals are aligned with what the ratepayers need to have safe delivery of clean drinking water. So what that means for you all and whoever it is going to fill the seat is to just basically do that, do no harm, follow the 7 tenets of the mission statement that's been put out by Mesa Water District. Look for areas of improvement, put out fires, both figurative and literally, when they arise. Maintain the decorum of the overall water district. Be transparent so that the ratepayers and the residents of Costa Mesa and the other areas of the water district can see how their water is delivered, why they're paying what they're paying, and just overall make sure that things get handed off smoothly from, basically one generation to the next.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Bachmiller, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So you mentioned you hadn't been interested or hadn't thought of running for office prior to the hearing about the appointment, and a lot of people might want to be appointed to a board, but coming in 18 months, there will be an election in November. This seat will be open and will be available for election. If you were appointed, you would have the opportunity to campaign in that if you so chose. And again, because of the election cycle and the timing of Director Temianka's resignation, the seat will then have an election in November of 2020. So you'd have 2 elections and an appointment process in 3 years. Are you prepared to run and campaign vigorously for the seat if you were appointed?
The short answer is yes, I am. Again, that's why I had to have those conversations with some of the stakeholders in my life to make sure that I would have their support, whether that's time, whether that's maybe some resources that my family and I would need to commit to the effort of running. So if I were to be appointed to the board, I'm 110% committed to trying to remain on the board so that as I start to develop, the mission statement and the values and the vision along with each of the 4 of you, that I would be able to stay put as long as the voters agreed with my vision and see some of those goals come to fruition. I'm also aware that it could be a short term, whether because of consolidation, which I know is on the table after the passive measure TT, or because I could either be not elected, right? And I think that's all the more reason why I feel like I have a skill set that would benefit, if only first 18 months, this board, because there's probably many qualified people that are going to come and sit in this chair today. But I think where my background differs is that I have a proven track record of joining an organization and in short order learning all the necessary facts and helping move that thing forward. Whereas, maybe somebody that's got a more narrow skill set would benefit long term, but they would need to be in it for years and years. I'm also prepared to file and run in the fall of next year if I'm appointed. So.
All right, thank you, sir. For myself, I've been asking other candidates why they have not been attending meetings. I noticed that at our recent board meeting you were in attendance, and I appreciate that. And I guess the way I'll tie this question in is there are a number of meetings that the board has in addition to our monthly board meeting. Are you prepared to attend those meetings as well?
I am. I've tried to ascertain what that time commitment might be. When I conclude with my answer, I would love it if you guys could maybe give me each of your candid responses as, on average what that amounts to for hours per week or hours per month. But again, that's why I discussed it with my CEO of the company where I'm with to make sure that I would have that flexibility. I know that in addition to the monthly meetings, there's subcommittee meetings and then just special projects such as the one that's before you today. I know it's not meant to be a full-time job, but I'm sure there's cycles where it becomes one. I've had volunteer positions previous in my life where I know that I can balance those things. I have the blessing of my wife to come and support it. So the answer is yes. I'm confident I have the flexibility in my schedule and the bandwidth to make sure it happens.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Director Fissler.
I'm asking the same questions of everyone. You've covered a lot of this question, but to be consistent, how do you believe your current skills will contribute to our district's mission and statement and strategic plan?
Right. Well, I use the phrase kind of Swiss Army knife. I think with the various departments that report to me and some of the policies I've put in place in my current position, I'm confident I can, once if I were to have the blessing of diving in, I'm confident I can, really start to research where the needs are as I'm appointed to some of the other committees. I know that I have the education, the accounting, a specific example. I'm comfortable looking at a set of financial statements. I don't know that that's a skill set that a lot of people have unless they have an accounting degree or maybe they're an investor, right? That's something where I know I could dive in and I could help. If there's any way to lower our liabilities, to maximize our assets, to help with the finance department here, for those that actually work in the finance department at the district, that's something where I can dive in. On the HR side, again, if there's ever things that trickle up to the board because there's disputes, or if there's things where there's just input needed on hiring, firing decisions, that's something where I have a solid background. So I think, to answer your question, those are two specific examples, but that well-rounded background, once I'm appointed to the committees where you feel I might be best suited, that's how I think I can help.
Thank you. You're welcome. Director Dwayne is not asking a second question, so we'll go with Director Bachman.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, you're a private citizen, and when you become a public official, your financial status becomes public. There's a thing called the Form 700, and basically you disclose your income and your sources of income, and any donations or any campaigning. There's a whole series of things you got to disclose. Are you prepared and understand the dynamics of that?
I do understand the dynamics, and I am prepared. I have no skeletons in my closet, and my wife's finances, and my family's finances, I should say, are in good order, and I have no problems disclosing any information.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For my last question, Mesa Water is a retail water agency. Can you describe your knowledge of how, as an independent special district, Mesa operates?
Again, I'm not an expert yet, but my understanding is that being a regional, can you repeat the description you said?
Well, it's an independent special district.
An independent special district, as opposed to part of a regional district. So, my understanding is that you guys, the board that is, and the district as a whole, has access to water sources. The water here is not coming from the Colorado River. It's not yet coming through desalination. It's local, right? It's from aquifers. It's amber water. The idea is there's an allocation that's made to this district. It has to have the infrastructure in place to have it ready for delivery, and then the rates have to be set by the board, and I believe there's governing agencies that approve those rates. I'm not sure of the frequency. And then it happens, right? Then the employees that execute the functions need to make sure it gets delivered safely. As new building happens, they need to be connected to the system, and the bills need to be sent out, they need to be paid, and then the cycle repeats.
Thank you, sir. All right, any other comments or questions from the board? Very good, Mr. Nelson. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you around town.
Okay. It was my pleasure. Thank you all.
Is the next candidate here? Okay.
Next candidate is coming in.
Morning, Mr. Smith. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate your application. To give you a little information about our interview here, the recording in the background is not part of Mesa Water. It's brought in by an outside firm. We're not exactly sure why it's occurring, but we'd like you to feel comfortable knowing that it is not part of the process. With that, the process will include you giving us a description of about 3 minutes of yourself, and then we'll follow that with questions from the board members.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, if you'd like to go ahead and start.
Okay, my name is Larry Smith. I've lived in Costa Mesa for approximately 44 years of my life. When I was young, I worked for the Costa Mesa County Water District for about 5 years. I had various jobs while I worked at the water department, from meter reading, meter repair, I did some mainline work, some fire hydrant work, customer service calls, and however, my family was always in the optical business in Costa Mesa, and my father offered me a job in the optical business if I got my optical license, and I pursued that for about 38 years. I had a optical business in Newport Beach, and I recently retired about 3.5 months ago, and so I have been a friend of Joan Finnegan for maybe close to 50 years, and I see her every couple of years or so, and she's always encouraged me to run for the water board. And so when she had called me a few weeks ago and said there was a opening in the board, and so when the letter came to apply, I thought, well, I'll see if it's the right thing for me, and I'll let the board of directors be the judge. And so I've been interested in clean water and water conservation. My wife and I did the water saving program for, we tore out our grass and plants in our yard and went with succulents when that program was offered. And so I've been active in my church somewhat, and I just thought, well, it's time for me to get active in Costa Mesa. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll start with Director Fissler, if you please.
You did mention the letter and Ms. Finnegan, but what prompted you to decide that you'd like to be on the board of directors of Mesa Water District?
Well, since I recently retired, I do have time and energy and desire to put some effort into the community. So that was really my motivation to apply for the water board. When I worked for the water board, I did enjoy every day of my experience here, and so I thought it would be a good thing. Although when I look at the biographies of you gentlemen on the board, I'm thinking this is not a I don't have any current experience in water management. I have, but I do have the desire to be helpful in the community. So I thought, well, should give it a go.
Very good, thank you.
And with that, Director Dwayne.
Thank you. Would you describe for us your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
Well, it's quite a varied process of maintaining potable water for the community, maintaining the pressure in the system, maintaining the quality of the pipelines, and with your filtration plant up there, where you it's very excellent system that's been developed, and it's amazing maintenance, and just it's all good.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Director Bachmiller, if you please.
Thank you.
So you are aware that this position we're appointing today, the board may appoint for the unexpired term of a director who has resigned. However, the next intervening general election shall determine the director. So if you are appointed, the next intervening general election will be November 2018. Subsequently, to get back on the normal cycle where we elect 3 directors during the presidential year and 2 during the off elections, you'll have to run again in 2020. So are you prepared to both go through this process and stand for election in 2018 and again in 2020?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, for myself, I'm interested to understand if you're, when you've expressed interest in joining the board, why it is that you haven't been attending meetings.
Good question. Well, during my work career at my little office in Newport Beach, often found me at my business 60 hours a week. And my normal business hours were till 6 p.m. and often ran after that. And so I did notice that your board meetings start at 6, so I would have been tardy to attend the meetings.
Okay, thank you. Director Fissler, if you please.
Larry, how do you believe your current skills will contribute to our district's mission statement and our strategic plan?
Excellent question. I would put a lot of energy into providing whatever necessary hours and involvement in the committees. And however, I have not been a board member for I haven't been a board member for really anything. I was the president of Employees Association when I was at the Water District. However, that was many years ago, and so I'm not. I don't have any particularly recent skills to boast about.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Director Buckmore, if you please.
Thank you. So you're retired, and that's fine. I often wonder if the opticians have a group to get together. I had a good optician for many years as Dr. Lester Zeff, who passed away, but I don't know if you know him or not. But
I do know Dr. Zeff.
yeah, it's a fine man. And what does the term, the orderly replacement of capital facilities, mean to you?
Well, every structure has a lifetime, and it's important to replace systems that are in an orderly fashion and in a timely fashion, because as we've seen in the recent history of Los Angeles, where they have many pipeline failures, and they were mentioning that the pipelines are nearly 100 years old, and I can only imagine that they have to reduce the water pressure to keep the old cast iron pipes from leaking on a more routine basis. And I recall from when I was at the Water District that maintaining the pressure was a very good idea, because it helps to lower the fire insurance rating. It helps to keep the fire insurance premiums lower for the buildings and the businesses, and the water pressures maintained.
Thank you very much. Many people don't know about that hidden benefit of a good water system.
Thank you. Mesa Water is a retail water agency. Can you describe your understanding of its role as an independent special district?
Well, I think it's really important for many cities to have independent water department, because I've seen and heard of problems in other cities where the utilities have been priced out of one utility will be subsidizing another utility, and which is like in, for instance, Los Angeles, where recently the gas, natural gas, and electricity the price has been raised exorbitantly to cover other city expenses, and which I feel is extremely unfair for the ratepayers. And so I think having an independent water board is excellent.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? All right, Mr. Smith, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I look forward to seeing you around the community.
One's really working good now.
I'd like to share with you a little bit of information. The recording in the back of the room is not part of the Mesa Water process, so I don't want you to be nervous about that.
Okay.
An outside party has contracted with them for this recording. We're not sure why, but they're here.
Okay, thank you.
And to share with you a little bit about the process, we're going to start out giving you about 3 minutes to describe yourself, let the board know what you want about yourself for us, and then the directors have some questions that we'll be asking you. So,
Okay.
thank you very much. If you'd like to go ahead and describe yourself for us.
Great, thank you. Well, my name is Greg Warren. I'm a mechanical engineer. I work for Bear Process Corporation in Santa Ana. I've been there for 14 years. I'm in charge of all of the automation for manufacturing and distribution. So some of my key roles are order fulfillment for pro deliveries, manufacturing processes, paint tinting, things like that. So I spend a lot of time on continuous improvement, so working on areas of process flow, manufacturing type of items, and really just looking at how do we maximize our cost per gallon. So employee efficiencies, technology, things like that I really explore from an engineering standpoint. Before that, I was in race cars, so I was a fabricator and engine builder, so that's kind of my behind-the-scenes passion, is work on cars and motorcycles and so forth. And currently live in District 3 in Costa Mesa, right over by OCC. Been there for a couple years. And before I was in 2775 over by Mesa Verde District there. So, but yeah, just looking to really get involved in politics. I don't have any experience in the political realm right now, but I'm interested in city processes and getting involved in the community. And this opportunity came up, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to expand my knowledge and get involved in the community. So. Looking forward to helping you guys out if it's possible, and I think my background lines well with your strategic plan, your 7 initiatives, and I think I can fit in well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. With that, Dr. Director Trissler, if you'd like to lead us off.
Okay. Good morning, Gregory, and
morning.
thanks for coming, and we appreciate that we sort of asked you to come in ahead of your time and
no problem at all.
and we appreciate that. So my question to you is, what prompted you to apply for the position of director on the board here at Mesa Water?
My prompt, actually, like I said earlier, I've been interested in getting involved in city politics and maybe city council. I've kind of been exploring the areas of how to run, how to get involved, and so forth. And I heard about the position through family and friends, and looked it up online, did some research on it, and I thought, given the situation that I've been in District 3 as well, that this could be a great opportunity for me to get involved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And with that, Director Duane, if you would, please.
Would you describe for us your understanding of the role of the Board of Directors?
My understanding is that we have a Mesa Water District, all the employees, the general manager, and so forth, that are in charge of running the district. They have engineering backgrounds, finance, and so forth. They can basically handle the business. My interpretation is that the board would be responsible to make sure that the water district represents the community. We're fiscally responsible, really just a head of the department to make sure that things are being done correctly, and transparency and stuff like that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Director Bachman.
Thank you. Mr. President, You mentioned that you might be interested in city council or other activities within the city. You are perhaps aware that this position will stand for election in November of 2018?
That's correct.
And again in November of 2020. And are you prepared to campaign vigorously for this seat in twice in 3 years?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I'm asking this question. I apologize because I don't recall meeting you at one of the board meetings, and I'm curious if you haven't attended, why you didn't attend, and if you did, I apologize, and I'd beg your forgiveness on that.
Oh, no problem. Actually, I've only attended one board meeting with the Mesa Water District. That was our last one in August. That was my first experience, and the reason I attended is because of the opportunity that I found out, and I figured I'd come and see how it worked and try to get some research on securing the position.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Fissler.
How do you believe your current skills will contribute to our district's strategic plan and our mission?
I believe that my background in continuous improvement and problem solving from an engineering standpoint has really led me basically globally. I've been to China and Italy on problem solving events, and I'm in a unique role at Barrow where they basically present a problem, and it's kind of a blank slate for me to come up with new ideas on how to solve it. And I think that gives me a fresh perspective on different solutions, technology, engineering, and I think in the interest of the board, that would help with problems or customer service or things like that come up in the board meetings. I think I can think through logically and add value to maybe some new solutions.
Thank you. I only have one question. Okay. And Director Bachmiller, your next question, please.
All right, thank you. So as a private citizen, your finances are private. As a member of this board, you will be required to fill out a Form 700 in which all your finances will become public record, and a person may come and just request those. They need not give any identification, and they must be given the Form 700 without delay. Are you prepared to deal with that financial disclosure?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good. And my last question has to do with Mesa Water's role as a retail water agency and your knowledge of how an independent special district fits into the water industry.
I would say that the independent districts probably would help guide with new ideas. I've looked on your website, some of the projects that you've been working on, and I would say that those independent councils are probably good for coaching, maybe comparing what other districts are doing, other municipalities. I would say that that's probably how they would help.
Okay. I think that does it for the questions. Are there any other comments or issues for the board? And do you have a final statement that you'd like to make?
I do have one question, if that's okay.
That's all right.
Mr. Bachmiller, on your question about finances,
Yes.
You said somebody would not have to identify themselves? And
That is correct. That is the law.
That is the law, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and that there's security with my finances in that realm, right?
No. They
There's
are
not.
public record.
They are public records, okay.
They're including your exact income and your place of business and any sources of income.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Warren.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would like to clarify, it's not your exact income. It's broad ranges, 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000. It's just checking a box. It's not going to be.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I was just more concerned about somebody showing up on my door wanting my social security number or something.
No, your social security number, but it is a pretty comprehensive financial disclosure.
Yeah, okay, I'm prepared to do that.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. We appreciate you coming in this morning. And,
Okay. Great.
hope to see you around the community.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate the time, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Schomburg.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to point out a little fact for you. The recording equipment in the back of the room is not part of this process. It's not part of Mesa Water's activities here. They've been brought in by another party to record the events of the day.
Okay.
Don't let that make you nervous. This is a very comfortable group and easygoing. So,
Sounds good.
a little bit about the process. We're going to give you about 3 minutes to tell us about yourself. And then we've got some questions that we've selected that we'll go through the process of asking and allowing you to answer. Take as much time as you need within reason. We don't expect overly long answers, but adequate answers are appropriate. So if you'd like to now, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Okay. I'm Brent Scharnberg. I live up in the Hillcrest Park area. I have a business off of Anton. I have a family. I have 2 kids and a wife. My business, I guess more particular to this, is an infrastructure business. I'm a broker. My group works to acquire property for infrastructure projects. For the last 10 years, that's what I've done. I've been in real estate for over 20 years. I started at CB Richard Ellis, went to Bixby Ranch Company up off of Seal Beach Boulevard and was managing property. Then I went to Nationwide Health Properties. I was a senior analyst for their properties nationwide. Ended up going to a U.S. Realty Capital, which is a commercial real estate finance business. And they finance office centers, high-rises, retail centers across the country. My business actually is a combination of the two. So I have a portion of the business that actually does commercial real estate finance still. And we finance buildings around California specifically, mostly grocery-anchored shopping centers. And then on the infrastructure side, of course, we do infrastructure projects. The infrastructure projects I work on are renewable projects a lot. We're working up in Kings County and out in Daggett right now for solar projects. And I'm working with sanitation right now here in Orange County on an infrastructure project associated with 405. I ran at Edison. I started as project manager there, ended up running the real estate development group, and that's how I ended up in the renewable space. I ran all the renewable projects there for real estate acquisitions. Major projects, I did all the major projects at Edison for the last 10 years. So the Tehachapi renewable project, there was one that went through here in Orange County and acquired all the rights for that. So my history again is in real estate, specifically infrastructure. I'm very interested in water. I've been kind of looking into water for the last year or so. I have a friend that's on another board up near Aspendale, and they have a small water board up there. And she suggested that I apply for this when I called her and said, hey, I got this letter in the mail. What do you think of this? I always thought that these were elected positions, but this one seems to be appointed for a year. So that was a little different. I had never received a letter like that before. So it caught my eye.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the director's questions. Director Fissler, if you could lead us off, please.
Yeah, thank you for applying, Brent. We appreciate it, and thank you for coming in. My question to you is, what prompted you to apply for a seat on the board of directors at Mesa Water?
Like I said, I've been interested in water for a while. I started working with sanitation and seeing some of the projects that are there. I would say beginning of this year. Prior to that, at Edison quite a while ago, I worked on the Poseidon project and kind of analyzed it from the real estate side for electrical, the electrical piece. After Edison, I actually had not worked with, but I've been in contact with Poseidon. I don't have any contracts with them now, but I thought, as I saw that on your site, I know quite a bit about that area and thought, oh, well, this could be a good opportunity. So that's what triggered that.
Very good, thank you.
Director Dwayne, if you please.
Thank you very much. Would you please describe your understanding of the role of the Board of Directors?
So my understanding of the role of Board of Directors, it's an oversight position. I don't think it's a day-to-day operations type of a position. I believe they actually bring projects to you, you look at them, you're more of an approver, overseeing the water district.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Buckmiller.
Thank you, Mr. President. So normally this is an elected position. The resignation of President Temianka, who is now no longer in the state, is the reason why we are filling this position. There were several choices open to us. One was to call a special election. Another was to let the Board of Supervisors of the county fill the position, or in this case, let the Board of Mesa Water District choose the new position. The position will stand for election in November of 2018 and again in November of 2020. So are you prepared to run a political campaign and campaign vigorously for the position? Twice in 3 years.
I would say I want to see how this works first. I would be interested in doing that. It's not something that I've done before. So I don't know really what that all entails. So it would be something new to me, but yeah, I would be open to that. You know, again, I don't really know all the components and things that we would be doing or that you do, so I want to see more of that. And we would take it from there.
Thank you.
Okay, and for myself, one of the concerns I've had with the people that are applying for this position or applying for this appointment has been their demonstration of interest in the position and in Mesa Water. And I've kind of kept tabs of folks at the meetings, and I'm not sure that I've seen you at our meetings, and I'm curious why that is.
I have not been at your meetings, that's true. I have a company that I run, and we work quite a bit. That was one of the things that I was interested in too, is seeing what the time commitment would be to this. I follow it online. I don't typically go to board meetings or public hearings or meetings like that. At Edison, I did that a lot for projects, and I went to project meetings and answered questions with the public. And so I've had a lot of experience with that. I just haven't been to my local groups, and that's because I work in a lot of different counties. I travel a lot, and so I haven't made that a point to do that, but I'm still interested in it.
All right, thank you very much, Director Trissler.
So we've gone over your resume and your qualifications, but how do you expand on how you believe your current skills will contribute to our districts, our vision? We have a strategic plan we like to implement, and what skills can you bring towards that? And you can reiterate things you've already said if you wish, but that's just my standard question to each candidate.
Yeah, it's a good question. My skill set is infrastructure and real estate. Your pipes, your wells are all on real estate. I think I can add something to the real estate side. I've cited a lot of projects. I know lots about real estate rights and roads and analysis. I've worked with a lot of contracts and contractors as far as bidding projects. So I have a lot of insight from that side, and I believe that would be of some help.
Thank you.
Director Dwayne is not following up with the second question, so we'll move on to Director Bachman's second question.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, As a private citizen, your finances are private. As a board member, your finances will be disclosed on a Form 700. They're disclosed in broad category, but the Form 700 says right on it, it's a public document. It could be posted on a wall if required. A person may come to the district and request a copy of the Form 700, which the district must provide. They are not required to provide their name, and you may not even ask them for their name if they don't wish to provide it. So that is the document, and the categories are broad categories, but it's still discloses your finances. Do you have any difficulty with this?
I would have to think about that one.
Thank you.
All right. That brings me to my second question, which is to identify Mesa Water is a retail water agency, but we are also an independent special district of California. And can you describe for me your understanding of what the role of the independent special district is?
I hadn't researched that, and that's not something that I have an answer for. That's the honest answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I was just going to suggest perhaps you want to answer his question about the time commitment, and I can take a stab at it if you guys want, or if anybody else.
Yeah.
The board position is, in some sense, what you make of it. There are regularly scheduled board meetings and then subcommittee meetings, and so it's roughly about 6 meetings a month that are regularly scheduled, but then each of us volunteers time in addition to that away from the district on statewide advocacy agencies like the Association of California Water Agencies, which does require some travel to Sacramento and other water conferences, and we are involved and engaged actively in the advocacy or in opposition to legislation that's flowing through the state, and it does require I suggest everybody would probably agree, a significant amount of time and attention, not only time away from your business. I own an independent business myself and often find it difficult, but also time while you're at work, where emails and phone calls and follow-up and that kind of thing. So there is and it's kind of what you make of it. We can't require you to do anything other than what the constituency requires. Once you're elected, you're fairly unaccountable. However, sharing the workload among ourselves, we try to share the burden, somewhat equally, and then utilize our individual skill sets to pursue and advance the mission of the district as we see it and where we've reached consensus. So I hope that helps to illuminate the idea of time commitment.
Yes, that was what I was looking for. Did you say it's 6 meetings a month? Give or
Well,
take?
I can attest that there are about 6 regular meetings of the board and subcommittees, but then there are also commitments that we have to other agency liaison. Usually one of us takes an assignment to attend some of those other things. Some of us participate on either statewide organizations like the Association of California Water Agencies, regional board positions, the Joint Powers Insurance Agency. We have a member that sits in those meetings, which occur either in Sacramento or Monterey. And we have one of the board members that represents us on the Local Agency Formation Commission. And so we're allowed to be paid for 10 meetings a month. And I think almost all of us are making meetings in the range of 12 to 15 meetings a month.
Okay.
So that may give you a little bit more of an
Yeah, gives me a
idea.
good guide.
Yeah.
Are the majority of the meetings, and I believe they're, from 3 o'clock on, are they from 3 o'clock on or during the day?
So the meetings of the board meets currently, we used to meet twice a month as regular board meetings, and then a few years ago, President Fissler brought forth some changes to policies, and it actually was worked out very well that we have one meeting a month, and then we have committee meetings, engineering and operations, finance committee, and local and public affairs committee. And those are committee meetings that we attend, and then there's executive committee, which is the president and the vice president. Those meetings, all those committee meetings begin at 3:30 in the afternoon, various days. Each week of the month seems to have a committee meeting. And then the board meetings are on the second Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock. When you first come on the board, there's a steep learning curve. If you want to be an effective director, if you want to be a slug and don't do anything, then there's no learning curve at all because you can just sit there and do nothing. But most people who have an interest in becoming the board, they want to learn and do and become a viable board. So steep learning curve, and to get up to speed, and then so that takes many hours aside from just the meeting time. Then eventually you get to the point where you're used to doing the meetings, and it takes less of the time to review the board packets than it usually used to do. So I would say it's, if you got a 40-hour week, on average for me it's 6 to 10 hours a week.
Okay.
And then some weeks it's a whole week of vacation taken to go to a committee meeting. So I'll take a week of my vacation for my job and go to work for the water district at a conference where I represent the agency, things like that. So it's definitely a lot of time.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Schomburg, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate your application and appreciate you coming in to spend some time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's go to the pharmacy. Our district secretary, you guys did verify that all of the folks actually have a legal residence within the division?
We did, and just of note is that we actually received a total of 17 applications.
Okay.
There was one which was not within the district. Well, actually, it wasn't that it wasn't a valid resident in Costa Mesa, but he was actually not in Division 3.
Okay. There was one guy who I was unable to kind of figure out where he actually lived. He kept talking about, I lived in this area, I lived in that area, I lived in this area, and I wasn't sure if he actually lived in the division. He said, I own a property in the division, but he didn't say that he lived at that property that he owned.
Basically, the way we did it was through the Register of Voters office.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, Mr. Hill. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
I guess I sit here.
Yeah. I'd like to share just a little bit of what's going on here today.
Okay.
The recording equipment in the back of the room is not part of the process. It's not something that Mesa Water has added to the process. Somebody outside of Mesa Water has contracted with a firm to come in and record our proceedings today.
Oh, okay.
Don't let that make you nervous. Has no bearing on your
I'm going to find
your
some
application.
YouTube later, I think.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. To let you know a little bit about what we're doing here today, we're going to give you, to start off with, about 3 minutes to describe yourself to us, help us know you.
Okay.
And then we're going to ask you some questions, not a lot, but that are all relevant to the board position.
Okay.
So if you'd like to go ahead and start off, take about 3 minutes.
Okay. And you'll give me time when you cut me off.
Okay, we can do that.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for having me too. I appreciate that. As far as who I am, hopefully you have my information in front of you as far as my CV I provided you. So currently I'm a pharmacy director over Orange Coast Memorial up in Fountain Valley. I've been a Costa Mesa resident since about 2009, but I've been living in this area, Huntington Beach, Santa Ana, since probably about 2005. I've been in Orange Coast for about 3 years in my current position as director of pharmacy, and so I oversee about 43 employees. I'm responsible for all the budget and drug purchasing, labor spend, and all those types of things. Outside of my work, I have 2 small children, a 5 and a 6-year-old. So pretty much most of my time that's not taken up by work, which is quite a bit, is playing with them and taking them around to all their different activities and things that they do. When I got the letter from Mesa Water as far as the position, on the board of directors is open, I think myself and I think a few others you might have heard from already or will be hearing from, because I spoke to somebody else out in the waiting area. We kind of looked at it and go, this is kind of an interesting thing that maybe we hadn't considered before, especially I hadn't considered before, of how do I get involved in the community that I'm in. And so I felt it was an interesting opportunity, and so I kind of mulled over it for a week. I talked to my wife about it a few times, like, well, what do you think? I mean, what should we do? And so in the end I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to throw my name in the ring, and hopefully with some of my skill set that I've developed over the last 3 years at my current position, but even prior to that, I could be of value to Mesa Water and hopefully to the community. If I had to say what is I do on a daily basis, it's decision making. I'm constantly staffing my office, other departments in the hospital. It's always come to me about what do we do this, or which way do we go, or how should we handle that, and so making decisions is pretty integral to what I do on a daily basis. So sometimes that's hard to come across in letters or on paper, but I think that's a big part of what I do every day.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, we'll ask Director Fissler to lead off with the questions.
Thank you, Stanley, for your interest and appearing here this afternoon. My question to you is, and you touched on it briefly, but maybe elaborate a little more, just what prompted you to apply for the board of directors here at Mesa Water, just besides a letter? I mean, prompted you personally?
Well, I guess it's kind of, it's hard to describe in a way. I'll try to do my best to kind of make it as tangible as possible. Growing up in Southern California, you always hear about water in one form or another. Oh, we're in a drought, or we can't, you can't fill up your pool, or you have to conserve water, or you have to do all these types of measures. In addition to what we just kind of got out of, with all of our previous drought, and how does our city, our locality handle those types of things? We kind of take it for granted on how it's handled and who's handling it and what's being done from a future planning standpoint and a current planning standpoint, and how our resources are used or allocated. And so I guess when I was thinking about it, I was like, this is something important, and again, with, this is where I'm making my home and we're going to be here for the long term. I guess I would like to have some hand in where that goes, and making sure that we're doing the right thing, that that the water district is kind of looking at future resources, or how are we allocating what we're doing, or making sure that we have clean water for residents and that type of thing. So I think that's kind of really the background of kind of how I came out and developed what I developed for you guys.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
Director Dwayne, if you please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I only have one question. Would you please describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
My understanding of the board of directors, from how I interacted, say, at the healthcare facility level, is it's more from an oversight standpoint of what, it's kind of a two-way street. Operations would flow up from the general manager of the water district up to the board for these are prospective directions we want to go, and from a kind of a sign off and I don't want to say approval, that doesn't really feel like the right word, but kind of confirmation of direction, but then also from a board of directors standpoint, kind of helping set the direction of where the water district goes, or things that are important to the board of directors from aspects from an education, from a training, from a resource management to a financial management, back down through there. So it's kind of a two-way street, but kind of sitting at that kind of higher level oversight for the water district.
Very good, thank you.
Director Bachman, would you please?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this position is normally elected. Past President Timienka resigned to continue his business activities outside of the state. That made the board have three options. We could choose to appoint ourselves, we could allow the county board of supervisors to appoint, or we could call a special election. We chose to go through this appointment process. That means the state law then requires that an election, at the next general election, that a position be open for election. And then because we're elected 3 divisions during the presidential year and 3 divisions during the midterm elections, this division is elected during the presidential year. So that would mean then in 2018, which is the next general election, you would stand for election if you so chose. And then in 2020, there would also be another election. So are you prepared to vigorously campaign in 2018 and 2020 for this office?
Not knowing what I'm getting into from the standpoint of the day in, day out, at this point I would say yes.
Okay.
Because, if I'm making a commitment, I plan to see my commitments through. Let me give you an example. So, at Orange Coast Memorial, I was with the Memorial Care System for about 10 years, and I transferred down to Orange Coast Memorial in a position that I wasn't in at the moment, that I'm not in at right now. And the previous director of pharmacy retired kind of suddenly. And so they were asking for somebody to step up into that position. At the time, I had no experience from a managerial standpoint, from looking at kind of the large dollar financial standpoint, and I finally agreed after about a month to step in from an interim standpoint and say, give it to me and I'll take it and I'll move it forward. So about 6 months into that, I finally said, okay, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for all the way to take over for good once and for all. And I could have easily just said, go ahead, find somebody else. Taking over in that type of position is rather difficult because of the amount of regulatory constraints that are on top of pharmacy and these types of things, the financial load as far as managing, $15 million department. But that just wasn't my nature. That's not what I wanted to do. I was like, I want it, let me have it, and I'll keep going. So I've been in that position since 2014, and honestly, I haven't really looked back from there. And I had plenty of opportunity to say, that's okay. Go ahead and find somebody else, and I'll be happy with stepping back down or taking a different position.
Thank you. We had a person named Alvin Pinkley who was one of their founding members of the board of directors.
Oh, is that right?
Pink's pharmacy and drugstore.
Interesting.
All right. Thank you very much. Director Fissler, if you would, please. Oh, I guess I should ask my question. Probably should, sorry.
This is rather brisk
a little
now.
punchy
now. I've sort of tried to observe the folks that have expressed interest in this position as they have attended board meetings, and I'm not sure that I recall your face.
Correct.
But can you tell us why, if you're interested in this position, why you wouldn't have come to some of the board meetings we've had in the last month?
Sure. When I received the letter, I kind of sat on it for a few weeks when I was mulling it over. So the only opportunity would be the last board meeting, which I think was the 10th of August, if I remember correctly. Right. And it just so happens that I'm having construction done on my department in my clean room environment. which has a lot of regulatory around it. So I was working kind of, I guess you'd say, double shifts while I was there. So I was there from about 8 to 4 every day, and I came back at 8 o'clock till about 2 in the morning. And I did that for about a week. That was the week that you were having the board meetings, so I was somewhat unavailable to come in unless I didn't really want to go home for a couple of days. What I did do, because knowing that I wasn't going to be able to attend, I did go through all the minutes and agendas for the past few board meetings to kind of see what type of materials and items were being discussed at the board meetings. It looked like, if I can recall correctly, there was some construction project that was up for approval at one of the last board meetings. I can't remember the details of that. I think there was another one about a ruling of a resident. There was some kind of ruling to discuss approval, some decision about a resident's complaint or something like that. So I looked through some of the agendas because I couldn't physically be here for the meetings.
All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll ask Director Fisher.
Yeah, now it's my turn.
Now it's your turn. Thank you, sir.
Stanley, you touched on Director Duane's question about the board and what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a district mission plan and a strategic plan, and of course it would be important that someone had a skill set that could help implement our plan, our vision. And I was just wondering, even though you've touched on some aspects, if you have anything else to add about what skill set you would bring to help implement a strategic plan and a mission statement.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to think on that for a second. I think if I remember some of the items for the mission statement, I know one of them was, I think it was transparency, and I know the one was fiscal responsibility, if I remember correctly. And fiscal responsibility is obviously something that I have to kind of manage constantly in my current position. So looking at strategies for doing that, looking at how are we doing as far as, from the standpoint of revenue versus expense and those type of things. So looking at that, I think I have some skill set around looking at from the financial side. Though I'm not an accountant or have an accountant background, I think it's, I would say it's like balancing a checkbook in a way, but I mean, you have expenses, you have incomes, and you need to make sure that you're writing those types of things off. Education, I think, is another thing that was in there, if I remember correctly. This, these through the agendas, I noticed a lot of documentation about staff education, and I don't remember if we saw anything about other types of community education, but that's another area that I have some skill set in by being an assistant professor at different schools of pharmacy in the area. So I might be missing the direction of your question. Am I going down the right road, or am I totally off base with where you're?
No, you don't need to know our strategic plan. That's not, I'm asking that. I'm just asking, you have a mission statement probably and a plan where you work.
Yeah.
And so I'm just,
we kind of
just general skill set to implement.
Well, we look at that mission statement as kind of that guiding function for where we want to take, whether that's the medical center or my individual department or pharmacy services as a whole. And my assumption would be that would be the same from the water district. And how to implement that does depend on, obviously, the mission statement itself, but it's kind of having that compass in the right spot, as far as, okay, we need to direct to certain directions for where we're taking oversight or what we feel is important, and how to push for certain policies or projects that kind of align ourselves with that statement. Again, some of that decision making that I've done on the day in, day out for many, many years, I think helps with critically evaluating whether we're on track or going in the right direction, whether it's a financial issue, project issue, complaint, resolution type issue, that type of thing.
Thank you. Okay, Director Duane isn't asking a second question, so Director Montmiller, if you would...
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So as a private citizen, your finances are a private matter. As a public official, your finances are a public matter. And the way this is communicated to the public is through Form 700. Right on the top of the form it says, a public document. It can literally be posted on the wall. And it discloses your finances. They're in sort of broad categories, $10,000 to $100,000 kind of things like this. It's not your exact income.
Oh, okay.
But it is your disclosure of income, any loans you might have, personal loans, anything like that. Things you can, commercial lending institutions, a different story. Any kinds of things of that. But it is disclosed, and you can use a business address. It's not your personal address, but it is. Okay. Your financial life becomes somewhat, in fact, pretty close to
out in the open.
A public thing. So some people are uncomfortable with that, but that is the rule. Are you okay with that?
I guess I'd have to understand the specificity of that. May I ask a question back?
Please do.
So are we talking about tax returns in their full form, or are we
No,
talking
it's not that. It's you. The form says, what is your employer? And then who do you get your money from?
Okay.
And if you were a private consultant and you had clients that gave you a certain income over a certain amount, then you would have to disclose that.
So it's more like a income range type of thing?
Yes, it comes like 0 to 1,000, to 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000, 100,000.
Does it dive into different types of, personal holdings, or is it mostly personal?
Yes, if you have investments and you have like your principal residence, things like that, you can. But if you have investments, you got to show what your investments are.
Okay.
Because the idea is that the public does not want somebody who's on the payroll.
Sure.
So to speak.
Yeah. I don't foresee that an issue. I mean, it's pretty straightforward for myself and my family. I mean,
it is for most people, but some people are a little more.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think with today's world and knowing that it is a public position, and you kind of have to get over that. Mm-hmm. But I think in today's world with identity theft and all those types of things, it is a sensitive point, I think, for most people right now. As far as
it's protected pretty well, so that your identity, you won't have any personal identifiers.
Oh, okay.
Like
okay.
Social security number, stuff like that.
So okay.
And your business address will be on there, but not none of those things. It's not that. It's about the money you're getting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't foresee that as an issue. I mean, I only have one income coming from one place.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you very much. My second question has to do with the fact that Mesa Water is a retail water agency, but we are also an independent special district. And can you share with us the understanding of the independent special district role within the water industry?
I'm going to say you got me on that one. I'll be honest. Special districts, as far as their role and kind of their structure, I don't have any exposure to. That would be something that I think I would have to, obviously that would be part of my learning curve as far as, onboarding to understand those types of things. But currently, I don't have any great understanding of that.
Basically what it means is we're not part of the city. We have the ability to set rates and to govern ourselves.
So you're not so you don't have anybody from the city council directing you what to do?
No, the city council has no authority whatsoever.
Okay.
With that, unless there's other comments or questions from the board, Director Fisley.
Yeah, I'll just, for clarification, so in case you're appointed, I'm going to move you up the knowledge timeline really quickly on special districts. There's they cover a range of things from water, sanitation, public libraries, vector control, recreation, cemetery. There's 27 independent special districts in Orange County, and basically the special districts were usually founded to do a specific service a lot of times before a city ever was. So they were founded to provide water. They got a bunch of farmers got together. They sort of made a district here. So sometimes the boundaries of a special district go outside a city, and they can be much larger than a city. We go into parts of Newport Beach and unincorporated Orange County. We don't even cover all of our city. Actually, we lose one little section off Irvine. So they're formed for a specific reason, and the local control is also one of the main features of it. One focus, quicker reaction, closer to the people. That's what a special district is.
May I ask a question back? So I guess how does that roll into, say, the districts that are like, Irvine or the other ones that are around? Do we work in conjunction with them? Are we working independent? Is there connections? Is there an overarching?
As the title indicates, independent special districts operate as independent entities within the state by state law.
Okay.
And so they're generally formed by groups, but they essentially establish the governance of a particular function or area.
So there's not really much collaboration between.
That's not to say there's no collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah. They are completely independent. Their
Sure.
governing board rules.
They have their own individual one.
Right, Irvine Ranch is California Water District,
Yeah.
is ruled by their board of directors, and we're ruled by our board of directors. We, however, have collaborative or working relationship with Irvine Ranch Water District on a number of areas, and we both are members of the Association of California Water Agencies, and we have common areas of interest and some areas of conflict, but we have a working relationship with them. We have a working relationship with other special districts in the area as well.
I would just point out that I mentioned that Mesa Water is a retail agency, and we generally provide water from the Orange County Water District, which is another special district that's established to manage or regulate the use of water out of the groundwater basin here in Orange County. And so that's how some of the special districts can end up working together, is the retail wholesale end of things.
Okay.
So with that, we thank you for joining us, Mr. Drake. Mr. Hill?
Right on time. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hopefully you're not too worn out by the end of the day.
No.
We're going good.
We're doing well.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Hope to see you around.
Staff's very good for when to have a 20-minute break at this point.
What's that?
Our staff, they did a 20-minute break at this point.
Oh, did they? Oh.
Good job, staff. So,
Where is that?
between 1:20 and 1:40.
I think it's... No, that's at the end.
Oh, you're right. I'm wrong.
I was looking at that saying, where's he getting 20 minutes to add?
Tim Sessler is an auto club lawyer.
Is he?
He's going to well. Yeah, this actually.
You should hit him up on the...
The well lease.
Is he?
Yeah. Planning commission. That's what goes for that? Yeah. It is up there.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sessler. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We look forward to a little chat here. We'll share a couple of things with you. One, the recording going on in the back of the room is not part of Mesa Water.
Okay.
They've been hired by an independent party to record the sessions that are going on today. We're not exactly sure why, but please don't allow that to deter you in any way from giving us your best answers.
Very well.
To give you a little primer on the process, we're going to give you about 3 minutes to describe yourself to the board, help us get to know you a little bit, and then the board has some questions that we've been actually asking of all of the candidates, and we'll give you plenty of time to answer those. So, great. With that, we'd like to ask you to go ahead and help us know who you are.
Great. Very well. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, directors, good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tim Sessler. I've submitted my name as a candidate for the District 3 Director opening for Mesa Water. I'd like to provide a brief summary of my background and how it may be useful for the opening in question. I'm a long-term Costa Mesa resident whose family has lived in the Wimbledon Village Association in northern Costa Mesa within District 3 for more than 15 years.
I've been involved in the local community in Costa Mesa during this time, whether it's shepherding my children through local schools, going to local church and serving on its vestry, or serving with local charities such as being a board member of Costa Mesa United. Educationally, I attended Kansas State University and received a degree in business administration. Kansas State is located in Manhattan, Kansas, for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, and where I was born and raised. I earned a Juris Doctor degree from UCLA in 1989, and subsequently graduated from USC's Marshall School of Business in 2014 with an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. I'm a practicing attorney for a large motor club and financial services company with local headquarters in Costa Mesa and operations in 20 states. My practice involves expertise in regulatory, insurance, marketing, privacy, and data security issues, and much of my time lately has been related to privacy and cybersecurity issues. In regards to city-related experience, I served on the City of Costa Mesa's Pension Oversight Committee for 4 years, and as a commissioner for the Planning Commission from 2013 through 2016. During that time, I worked seamlessly with my fellow commissioners and developed good relationships with staff. Consequently, I believe I would bring a desirable set of skills and expertise as well as experience in public-facing role and the temperament to get along with fellow board members and various stakeholders, whether they be fellow board members, staff, public, or customers at large. From my observation, Mesa Water is a very well-run district, and I would appreciate the opportunity to contribute towards its continued success. I appreciate your time and consideration of my application for this position. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. With that, we'll let Director Fissler lead off with questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fessler.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you again.
Yes.
A large auto club, what did you call it? Anyway, my question to you is, what prompted you to apply for a seat on the board of directors at Mesa Water?
Well, I think really what prompted me was the announced resignation of Ethan. It indicated that there was an opening. I remember him vividly campaigning in our neighborhood. I liked the campaign he ran. I liked him. Thought he did a good job representing us. And I saw that opening, and I've always thought, Mesa Water to me is a well-run district. So well-run, you just kind of ignore it, I guess. I've been having served in city council. That's not always the case. Not city council, planning commission, and other aspects. And this, frankly, the appeal of applying for kind of a well-run organization who's kind of the goals and the strategic vision that they have in terms of running a well-run, financially secure district was appealing. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Director Duane.
Hi there. Hey, I only have one question today, and that is could you describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
Right. I think, the board of directors they work with the staff to set a direction as to where the district wants to go. And my understanding is that the board works as elected officials to provide direction in for example, in their strategic plan, and that the employees and the staff try to implement that direction so that the organization can follow it. They provide kind of I guess you could say that whether it's the board level expertise or CEO expertise, and the staff is more the CEO, the day-to-day operations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, Director Bachman.
Thank you. So this position, as you know, Director Temienko resigned, and we had three choices. We could let the Board of Supervisors appoint a replacement, we could hold a special election, or we could have the Board of Mesa Water District appoint a replacement. However, that replacement only serves until November 2018. And then, because of the district in which he lives, the normal election cycle is with the presidential year cycle. So in 2020, the position will be up for election again. So are you prepared to vigorously campaign to retain your seat in 2018 and in 2020?
Well, it's putting the cart before the horse, but in that opportunity, if I was in that position and chose to run, yes, I clearly when I engage in activities, I usually engage with them to succeed, is the answer. And I've supported and been involved with local politics in Costa Mesa, kind of understand how that's worked locally, and understand the process locally. So that wouldn't surprise me. I would be, if I made that decision, I'd choose to do so heartily.
All right, thank you, sir. For my question, one of the things that I've been observing over the last few months are the folks that attend our meetings. And I'm not sure I recall seeing your face at the meetings, but I may have, and just I'm not good at recalling those things. But if you haven't, can you let us know why? And if you have, I apologize.
Right. I have not attended meetings. I've seen your website. I've read your agendas on the website. In my experience with the Planning Commission, there are a few people that regularly attend meetings, and that's useful. That's useful information to have. I think the vast majority of individuals in our community don't. They have other activities, whether it's work, whether it's their children, whether it's other local activities. So they can follow it either on the website or elsewhere. But I've never felt compelled because of a burning issue that Mesa Water District was not going in a direction that I disliked, that I felt compelled to attend a meeting. So I found in my experience that's usually explains most of the reasons why individuals have attended, for example, when I was in the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Schisler.
Yeah, Tim, you did talk about the role of the board and our strategic plan. So can you elaborate a little bit on the skills you bring to help as a board member, what skills you have to implement or add to our vision or strategic plan?
Well, I think professionally, my background is as an attorney, so it brings a certain analytical skill set, and also combined with, I think, my experience in the Pension Oversight Committee and the NBA, I'm not afraid of numbers. So, and again, in my role in dealing with executives frequently, we're being required to advise on kind of high-level issues that are guiding an enterprise. So I'm not unfamiliar with those type of issues. Also, in my time on the Planning Commission, again, we're receiving issues that will affect the whole community. So I think I'm comfortable in understanding how large organizations work, the multifaceted ways in which you have to approach all your stakeholders. You don't just, you have multiple stakeholders that you have to appeal to, right? You have a public face, you have to work with your individual employees, you have to appease your customers and other stakeholders as well. And to today's society, for any type of organization, whether it's a government entity or a large corporation, you really have to be constantly aware of all the stakeholders that you have to serve and how you have to present yourself to each of those stakeholders. So I think my expertise, not only do I have kind of the technical expertise that brings some advantages, but I think just I have a wealth of work experience. I mean, I'm 54 years old, I've been in the workforce quite a while. I think at some point you kind of understand how things work. And so I think that is helpful as well. And finally, I said this earlier in my introduction, I think I have an ability to work with others in these kind of roles, whether it's board members or whether it's staff or others. I do think I bring a temperament that would assist the board. It's not going to be confrontational and not going to be a thorn in your side, so to speak. So that's the case I'm making for myself right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. With that, Director Watt.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I had a question I asked other candidates about Form 700, but you've been on board, so you know what a Form 700 is. So what does the phrase, the orderly replacement of capital facilities, mean to you?
Well, I think to me, kind of a common sense reading is that you plan for your future today. It's constantly devoting monies to replacing the infrastructure that's needed to run your operations. You don't, for example, stories that come to light in the news are involving Los Angeles district where their pipes are 100 years old and they've really not planned for the orderly replacement of that kind of infrastructure. to me, that's what that signifies. I don't know. That's certainly the approach that I favor, and it seems to me the approach that this district has taken in terms of their decisions, in terms of kind of the consistent and regular investment in infrastructure, so that we don't have surprises down the road. And to me, that's serving the needs of the taxpayer and our residents and all of our stakeholders in a very, to the best of their ability.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sisler. The Mesa Water District is a retail water supplier. And as Director Fissler mentioned, we cover some areas, basically Costa Mesa, a little bit of Newport Beach and John Wayne Airport. But we are an independent special district. Can you describe for us your knowledge or understanding of the term independent special district as it's related to the water industry?
I do not have that expertise, no. I presume with independent that means it's not beholden to other entities, although it works with other, such as the Orange County Water District and others. But that would be purely kind of speculation.
Okay. And with that, well, thank you very much. An independent special district, by the way, is a government of its own.
Right.
It's within the state and within the county.
I mean, there was a code section that establishes that. I read that on your website.
Yeah.
And it's been in existence since 1960, right?
Exactly.
So
Predecessor agencies going back to 1917.
Right.
Anyway,
I want to ask
other comments from the board.
Yeah, do you want to ask? Do you have any questions for us?
Well, how long have you been working together, and in terms of your strategic vision and of the 7 kind of core strategies, when was that developed, and what went into developing that?
Well, I'll share with you. Director Bachmiller and I have been on the board 18 plus years. Director Duane has been here 12, 13 years. Director Fissler about 7. Yeah. And the strategic goals get reviewed by us on an annual basis. And so we look at the things that are important. We make plans, we have discussions on directions and policies that need to be addressed. And occasionally we do some wordsmithing on the mission or the vision, but generally as a group, we're pretty satisfied with the mission and vision portion of our statement to the public.
Right.
But our strategic goals do vary, and they help us guide staff to fulfilling the mission, vision, and goals of the district. So that's really the core of our work. When we talk about where things are going, specific projects, those things are addressed as functions of the strategic goals.
I think it provides a very nice method of communicating to the public exactly the district's goals and vision and how it means to implement it. So my compliments. I think it does a very effective job of communicating that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you around the community soon.
This
Good
looks like
afternoon.
the hot seat, huh?
Yeah, that's it, Tom. Good afternoon, Mr. Paul. Glad to see you here. Thanks for joining us. By way of a little primer on what's going on today, the recording in the back of the room is not part of the Mesa Water activity.
Okay.
It's an independent group that hired them to come in and record our proceedings today.
Okay.
No idea who they are.
Yeah, we have no information or idea who they are. But to give you also a little primer on what we're doing, we're going to give you about 3 minutes to help us get to know you a little better. And then we have an assortment of questions that we've been asking each of the candidates.
Okay.
So we invite you to go ahead with your 3-minute introduction to us, and thank you for joining us.
Okay. President Atkins, fellow trustees, and members of the public, my name is Tom Pollitt. and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and address you. I'd like to also provide you with 3 reasons why I think I'd be an excellent choice for the open trustee position. Experience and background. Secondly, fully support Mesa policies and strategic plans. And third, I have the time and the ability to get up the steep learning curve. Experience and background. I've given you a complete list of my background and experience, but I'd like to highlight a couple items. I have a Master's of Business Administration degree from Cal State Dominguez Hills. And in the business world, I was in senior management with Citibank in St. Louis. Over the last 15 years, I've owned my own business, residential real estate appraisal, with as many as 5 employees. I think this demonstrates that I can work in a large structured organization as well as being a self-starter, which is required for running a small business. I've been on various nonprofit boards over my career, and I'm currently working with the Finance Committee for the City of Costa Mesa. I understand well how the board functions, and especially what the board of directors' responsibilities are in a nonprofit organization. Secondly, I fully support Mesa policies and strategic plans, providing safe water, abundant and reliable water supply, practice perpetual, infrastructure and renewal improvement, being financially responsible and transparent, increase public awareness about Mesa water and water in general, attract and retain skilled employees, and provide outstanding customer service, and actively participate in regional water issues. Time and ability to get up the learning curve. I'm currently retired and have the time to learn all about the water business and how we get water into our homes and businesses. I am a fast learner and would look forward to being part of this organization. Therefore, in review, I have experience and background required for the position. I am in agreement with the policies and strategic plans, and I have time and ability to get up the steep learning curve. Hoping to be an effective ambassador for Mesa Water. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, sir. With that, Director Fissler, would you like to lead off?
Yes, good afternoon, Tom. Thank you for applying and joining us here. My question to you is, what prompted you to apply for and want to be on the Mesa Water District Board of Directors? And why would you want to be a director?
I've been a resident of Costa Mesa for about 15 years now. And over that period of time, I've gotten to know a couple of you, but I've been involved with some of the water issues, the rate increase, for example, I was involved in. When you were doing your initiative with the sanitary, I held meetings in Costa Mesa for that, and I promoted the meetings that you were holding at the various places. So I've been involved with the water department. I think I would be a good ambassador for Mesa Water. I think that with my experience and background, it would be helpful.
Thank you.
And I have the time now.
Yeah. Director Dwayne, if you would please.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Hi, Tom. How are you? Yeah, I just have one question today, and that is, would you describe your understanding of the role of the Board of Directors?
The role of a board of directors in most situations is to be the policymakers and direct the areas that the organization would go in, to advise when asked, but not to be day-to-day management. I understand the procedures of the voting and how things are handled from a organizational Robert Rules of Law and so on.
Thank you.
Director Bachman.
Thank you. So when former director Ethan Temienka resigned, the board had 3 options. One was to allow the County Board of Supervisors to fill the seat. One was to hold a special election, and the other was to have the Mesa Water Board choose to fill the seat. We chose that option for a variety of reasons. So because of the timing of this, there are 2 elections that this seat will be going through. One in November of 18 and one in November of 2020. So are you prepared to campaign vigorously and win this seat by election?
Most certainly. I've run for elective office in the past. I know what it takes to put a campaign together. In fact, one of the nonprofits that I'm involved in puts on every 2 years a class for candidates, the how-to run an election, putting your committee together, getting the forms done, doing your statement, and so on and so forth. I'm very familiar with what it requires. I'm not the best fundraiser, but I think I can raise enough funds to be competitive. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. For my question, I know in the past you have attended some of our meetings, but when the interest for the position came up, I haven't noticed you in attendance at any of our recent meetings. I would have thought that you'd have been here to present your face and have an opportunity to talk with us as well as see some of the issues that are confronting the district. So could you explain your attendance position?
The last 2 weeks my grandchildren have been in town, and the family comes first. I feel I have a good knowledge based on about 5 years ago I attended a number of your meetings, everything from the finance committee meeting to the engineering meeting to some of the other meetings. I was very active. I've had Sean speak at our organization meetings a number of times. I had Poseidon come in and talk. I've had nonprofits come in and talk about water conservation. I have a wide background and interest in water, and while I was not available the last couple of weeks, that doesn't mean that I'm not interested, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Director Tristler.
Yeah, for my final question, we have a mission statement of pure, plentiful, affordable water, and we also have a strategic plan that you went over. So implementing the strategic plan is what's going to run the district. So what skills do you believe you have that will help implement the strategic plan and or even add to a strategic plan, but just skills to meet our strategic plan and our mission statement?
I guess if you're looking for an engineer, I'm not that person. But if you're looking in other areas, I think I can be very helpful. For example, Citibank, the 15 years I was with Citibank, they drove customer service. They were the customer service bank in the 80s and 90s. And I learned that culture, what it takes to be an excellent customer service entity. As you know, Jim, I'm on the finance committee with you. I don't just sit there and not ask questions. I get involved. I understand how to read a balance statement and understand the finances. So I do get involved from that point of view. The other areas, as an ambassador, I'm not shy at all about getting up in front of the public and speaking. And I would look forward to being able to go out and be an ambassador for Mesa Water. I have the time to do that, and if there's an opportunity, I would jump at it. In addition to that, I would love to be involved with the different organizations that control water for the state of California and find out more about them and being active in that area. So that would be an interest for me.
Thank you. Thank you. And Director Bachmiller, your next question.
Thank you. So, as a private citizen, your finances are private. As a public official, your finances are public through the Form 700. Are you prepared to live with consequences of having your finances made public?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. For my final question, Mesa Water is a retail water agency. Can you describe your knowledge of the role of the independent special district that Mesa Water is within the water industry?
Your responsibility and your direction, I believe, is to provide water for the city of Costa Mesa and a few homes in Newport Beach. And you're supposed to, and I'm sure you have regulations and requirements that you have to follow in order to do that. Maybe you could expand on what you're really looking for.
Well, what I was getting at with the question, independent special districts are a form of government. We are an independent special district. It just so happens that we provide retail water service rather than wholesale water service. So agencies like Orange County Water District provide wholesale water service or management of the local groundwater basin. I was just trying to get at your understanding of the role of the special district as a form of government as opposed to city government.
I probably can't expand on that any more than what you just said.
Okay.
I understand, when you say government, I understand the responsibilities of that. But when you differentiate between the different water districts and the different responsibilities, I'm not aware of those at this point.
For most of the water districts, what it means is the ability to set rates and create the policies that control rates and charges of the district. So that's primarily what I was looking for, is the fact that we have the responsibility for setting those rates.
Well, I know that.
Good. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of us?
Well, I just follow up on the campaign thing. I realize that it's 2 elections. I looked into that, and
Fissler,
and that they would require. You got to start planning your election at the beginning of the year, if not sooner. And so it is a full-time, difficult situation. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And to run a good campaign, the advantage of the district is that it's a smaller number of homes, so you can walk that fairly easy.
I have many times.
And get the signs out. Ethan was excellent. I worked with Ethan when he first ran. He was excellent how he did it.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, Tom, I'd like to thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Okay.
Appreciate your application and look forward to talking to you some more.
Okay. One other question.
Sure.
When do you guys think you'll make the decision and how?
I think our next meeting is September 5th. We're in the process of narrowing down the list of candidates. And at this point, I believe the September 5th date is the next meeting that we'll be discussing the narrowed list of candidates. Hopefully at that meeting, we'll come to a consensus on the candidate of choice.
Well, good luck. You've got a lot of good candidates.
Thank you, Tom. What's that?
We're ready for the next topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
Good to go.
Yeah, good.
Three.
Yeah, this one. It's amazing. Only in production.
How time flies.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Westrup. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. I'd like to start off by sharing a little tidbit of information with you. The recording equipment and process going on in the back of the room is not part of Mesa Water District. They are hired by an independent outside entity, which we're not familiar with. But they're here to record the proceedings today. We hope that doesn't disarm you in any way, or it shouldn't affect your comfort level with this process. So we look forward to chatting with you here. And to describe the process a little bit for you, we're going to allow you about 3 minutes to tell us about yourself, your background, and help us get to know you a little bit. And then each of the board members has either one or two questions to ask of you, and give you ample time to supply answers and share with us what you think of Mesa Water District. So with that, go ahead with your introduction of yourself and help us know who you are. Bill Westrup. I'm a retired maintenance coordinator / project manager from the petroleum industry. I worked for 25 years in Long Beach, the Thumbs facility out there. It was when I hired in, it was Arco. When Arco got bought by British Petroleum, they spun us off to Occidental Petroleum in 2000. So I worked with the Occidental folks for just about 15 years, and they spun us off into the California Properties CRC in 2014. And most people know what happened to the oil industry around then, and they offered me a nice little package. What I did is I started at the bottom and worked my way up, and was in the operations group for about 15 years. Worked with the projects group on the logistics of doing a live cutover without losing production, and did that for a couple of years, and moved into well surveillance after we automated the whole facility in 2004. So I worked upstairs but with live data for about 4 years. The efficiencies, trying to squeeze every drop out, and in the last 5 years I worked in projects, managing field projects and day-to-day maintenance, electric, instrumentation, and mechanical. So it was pretty busy for the last 5 years up until the price of oil dropped. So had a few drilling rigs going, so there was a lot of coals in the fire, shall we say. Many hours out there in the field. Okay, that's about it.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. With that, we'll ask Director Fischler to lead off with his question.
Thank you, Mr. Westrup, for joining us and for applying to be on the board and joining us up here. What prompted you to have a desire to serve as a director at Mesa Water District?
Well, ever since I moved to Costa Mesa, 2005, get the little newsletter in the water bill about Mesa Water District. So I kind of followed along, and it looked like a very small, intimate company, and I have no desire to commute. So I figure a 5-minute drive would be good, and just the experience I've had over the last 25 plus years, pipelines, 24-hour company, 24/7, a lot of similarities, we had buried pipelines, we had submersible pumps, we had above ground pumps, just a lot of similar systems, and being involved with projects and sitting in developing the key performance indicators, that kind of stuff, I thought I had a little something to bring to the table for the water district.
Thank you. All right, Director Duane, please.
Thank you. Would you describe your understanding of the role of the Board of Directors?
The Board of Directors for Mesa Water District oversee the decision-making process for the overall company direction, whether it be contracts, projects, day-to-day, the benefits and or salaries of the personnel, just day-to-day and annual budgets for Mesa Water, the rates for the ratepayers that basically run the company.
Thank you.
Is that Director Bachman, or if you would please?
Thank you. So, Mr. Westrup, the position that you might be appointed to is normally elected. We had a resignation early into the term of one of our directors. We had 3 choices. We could allow the County Board of Supervisors to fill this position. We could hold a special election, or we could choose to appoint. However, the appointed person would then serve until November 2018, and then there would be an election. And because this division is elected normally during the presidential year, it will also stand for election in 2020. So are you prepared to campaign, run a vigorous campaign to win your seat as an elected official in 2018 and 2020?
Certainly.
Okay, with that, there are a number of people that we've been interviewing today that have all expressed interest in the position, but I've observed that not many of those folks have been to any of our meetings, whether they be a regular board meeting or even some of our committee meetings. I don't recall having seen you at the meetings, but can you share with me why you haven't attended the meetings, or if you have and I missed it, I certainly apologize.
I quite honestly hadn't given it much thought to put in for this board of directors until I came home from vacation, and there was the letter in the mail, and that would have been a good opportunity for me to see what you guys do by attending that board of directors meeting, but I have no explanation for that other than I didn't plan on putting in for this position.
And that's fine, sir. We certainly understand family comes first, so
thank you.
With that, Director Fissler? So we have
an overall mission, and then we're guided by a strategic plan. And I was just wondering, what skills do you believe you have that will contribute to our mission and our strategic plan fulfillment?
Well, over the evolution of the company that I worked for, we went from the very beginning, we were a nonprofit, just contracted to pull oil out of the ground and worked off a percentage budget. And we developed into, when ARCO bought us, a for-profit industry. And over the years, I saw the streamlining of operations due to the technology that's available today. And we streamline not only our personnel, but our operations and our purchasing and using contractors as opposed to in-house people to have specialty, whether it's the procurement or the replacement parts or the training. There's so many avenues available today that weren't available just a few years back. Continues to evolve with the technology that we have today.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Dwayne is choosing not to ask a second question, so we'll move on to Director Buckman.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, when you're a private citizen, as you are, your finances are private, except for the IRS, of course. When you become a appointed or elected official, the California state law mandates that your finances now become public. They're not extremely detailed, but there is a form called Form 700. Are you prepared to stand up to public scrutiny of your personal finances?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for my last question, the Mesa Water District is a retail water agency, and I'd like to ask you to describe your understanding of the role of an independent special district in the water industry.
Could you repeat that question? I think I missed something.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is Mesa Water is an independent special district, a form of government. And there is a role that independent special districts play in the water industry throughout the state. And I was trying to get at your understanding of the role of the independent special districts in the water industry.
I don't have first-hand knowledge, but I could take a stab at it. The main, the way I see it is Mesa Water District is in the customer service business. The customer being the residents, the industries within those boundaries. And I've simplified things. Without customers, there is no company. So customer service has to come first, but there's a few parameters in my world that I've always lived in. It's safety is first and environment second. If we don't protect the safety of the people and the environment in which we work, then we're out of luck again. So basically,
good. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask of us?
I don't have any at this time.
Okay, and from the board, are there any questions or comments that any of you'd like to make?
No, thank you.
Mr. Westbrook, we thank you very much for coming in and meeting with us today.
Gentlemen, I thank you very much for your time.
All right. Hope to see you around.
Yes. We'll see you in the board meeting.
Thank you.
Soon your objective is not to stretch it, it's to destroy it. It's time through life. Go 40 feet in the center. Like to a tree. You know, yeah, so we bleeding. Oh, you bleeding. He's really dirty too. He broke his. Oh, it's just
Companies got that can't even remember. Right. Good afternoon. Welcome, Mr. Wagner. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your attendance and your application. I'd like to share with you the recording going on in the back of the room is not part of Mesa Water's procedure. I'm probably just not close enough to it. And they were hired by an outside interested party, not to be part of the process, but apparently to record the proceedings today. So we'd like for you not to feel intimidated by it or bothered by it at all. It's got nothing to do with the process. The process today will be, we're going to give you about 3 minutes to describe yourself to us, an introduction, help us get to know you a little better, and then the directors have some prepared questions that we'll be asking you and giving you ample time to provide your own answers to the questions. So with that, I'd like to invite you to go ahead and help us get to know you a little better.
My name is Will Wagner, and I want to start from my education. I have my master's in civil engineering and mechanical engineering, and my specialty used to be heating and ventilation, air conditioning, water supply, and I started my career as a civil engineer. That was back in the beginning of the 90s. But then I switched my career to more into computer science. So I worked for multiple verticals. Worked for a local company, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies here, Valiant Pharmaceuticals, which we call ICN Pharmaceuticals. Worked there for about 7 years. And then worked for retail corporation, Pacific Somewhere. It's a company that provides, they have like retail stores all over the United States. Daxon, worked there for 6 years. Also in my specialty was business intelligence. And then I worked for another vertical called motion picture industry. It's a corporation it's a non-profit company that provides services for people working in the movie industry. 110,000 participants that provides the pension and health plans for all participants that support all movie industry in the United States and also international companies. And then recently, 2 years ago, I started a new job working for company Yahoo, also data science. And recently, Yahoo was acquired by Verizon, so kind of like Yahoo now it's called Oath. It's a combination of Yahoo and AOL, and it's under one umbrella, Oath company, and it's owned by Verizon. And currently there I provide also, my job is part of CIO department, and we provide all data-related services to the entire corporation. And the reason I applied for this job, I want to do some public service. And in the past, my only experience was that I worked for a non-profit motion picture industry. But I never had an experience actually working for the board. But I'd like to get involved and give back to my community. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to ask Director Fissler to lead off with his questions, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wagner. You did just touch that you wanted to give back to the community. I wonder if maybe you could just expand on that, because my question to you is, what prompted you to want to be a director here at the Mesa Water District and serve with us on the board of directors?
I always had an interest to get involved, and a while ago, back in 2014, I attended one of the meetings, and one of the meetings at the facility, at the Gisler facility, and I was kind of interesting meeting. So at that point, I never thought that I will apply, but at that point, I was kind of thinking about. No, once I got that letter that there is a position available, then I was thought about that meeting that we had back in 2014, and I thought, why not to apply and get involved? Because I kind of was fascinated with the facility.
Yeah, it's a great facility over there.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm glad you attended that. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Director Duane, if you please.
Thank you very much. Would you please describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
My understanding that the role of board of directors is to, because the water district is a non-profit corporation, role of board of directors to control and make decisions on some important projects. And the board of directors is kind of a bridge between the non-profit corporation and people, and provides with all feedback on any spendings that water district involved.
Thank you.
It's a major role, I think.
Thank you.
All right, Director Buckner.
Mr. President. So, normally this position is elected, and the only reason we're appointing is we had three choices when former Director Ethan Temianka resigned. We could allow the County Board of Supervisors to appoint a replacement. We could hold a special election, or we could have a form of appointment, which we've chosen to create this process and have an appointment process. In November 2018, there will be an election for this seat. And again, because the timing of the elections, we elect 3 divisions during the presidential year and 2 during the non-presidential year. To get back into the normal sequence, this division would have a campaign in the year 2020 as well. So are you prepared to run for elective office, campaign vigorously for the 2018 election and the 2020 election?
It's going to depend on my experience working for the board of directors. If I'm elected, I'm not elected if I'm appointed. And I'm prepared to run if I have good experience. It's just my honest opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, and for my first question, since this process began, since we've sent out the mailers, a number of people have expressed interest in being appointed to the board, and I've been observing the attendance of those potential candidates at our meetings. I'm not recalling seeing your face at any of the meetings. If I missed it, I do apologize, but could you describe for us potentially why you wouldn't think to come to either the board meetings or the committee meetings to see what the district's up to and what's going on?
I just don't want to just provide with my excuses that my family and my full-time job, but I think I would be able to find a job, would be able to find time to get involved.
Okay. Thank you very much. Director Fissler, if you would, please.
Yes, Mr. Wagner, we have a guiding document called our strategic plan, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to see it or you know what I'm talking about. But if you do know what I'm talking about, my question would be, what skills do you bring to help us implement our strategic plan?
From my experience in the past, I participated in many different projects to pick the right vendor, right provider for different projects at my companies. So I was actively involved in the selection process and decision-making process.
Very good. Thank you. Director Bucknell, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. President. So when you're a private citizen, your finances are private, except for the IRS. And when you become a public official, your finances become public. There's a form called the Form 700. And you have to list your income within a broad category and any sources of money that you have received. Listed over a certain dollar amount. And this document says right on the top of it, a public document. It can be posted on a wall. It doesn't have your address or your social security number or any identifying things other than your name. And it'll have the business address of the water district. Are you prepared to have your finances made public?
Yes, because I have nothing to hide. I have
Thank you.
no issues with that.
All right, and for my final question, Mesa Water is a retail water agency and a part of the broader water industry spectrum. And we are an independent special district. If you could tell us your knowledge or understanding of what that role of the independent special districts is within the water industry.
My understanding is that the reason because the company is independent at the same time because the company company provides with water services, and because there are no competitors to this company, that's why it needs to be supervised by the water board and provide feedback to the consumers. I'm not sure if I properly answered your question or not.
It's a little difficult question, but it's just fine. With that, that's the last question. Do you have any questions for us?
Not at this point.
Okay. Directors, are there any questions or discussions that you'd like to bring to the surface? With that, Mr. Wagner, we'd like to thank you very much. And
thank you very much.
Thank you for applying. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Good afternoon, Ms. DePasquale, is that it?
Correct, DePasquale.
DePasquale. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Especially seeing it's the end of our day.
I would imagine you're very happy.
Behind you there is some recording going on. I'd like you to know that that is not part of the Mesa Water process. It's been hired, the gentleman has been hired by an independent outside party to record the proceedings. We're not sure we understand why, but they're recording our proceedings today. Hope that you're not bothered by it or intimidated by it. Please feel at ease to be comfortable with us. We're comfortable with you. To explain the process to you a little bit, we're going to give you 3 minutes to help us get to know you a little better, describe yourself to us. And then the board has some questions for you that we'll be asking. And take your time answering the questions. Give us the best information that you can.
Some, I think, are tougher than others, but look forward to your responses. So with that, would you go ahead and help us get to know you a little better?
Absolutely. My name is Maris DiPasquale. Thank you for having me here today. And as you mentioned, I know you gentlemen started and the rest of your staff here early, so I guess I'm a good site in a lot of respects. We're in the home stretch here. As a 20-year resident and homeowner of Costa Mesa, I'm also a Mesa Water well-wisher. I first wanted to say thank you for your leadership. The financial stewardship that this board has shown for the district's healthy finances, eliminating the burden of an unfunded pension, and maintaining a AAA credit rating are accomplishments to be applauded. Prior to submitting my application, I reached out to the district's PIO, Stacy Taylor, and since that time I've had the opportunity to take a tour of the MRF. I got an overview of the district's workings, programs, facilities, and I even had the opportunity to drink some of the amber water while I was on my tour. As a public affairs professional, I've spent the last couple decades overseeing large projects that have required a diverse set of skills that I believe would be an asset to this board. Managing budgets totaling hundreds of millions of dollars, shepherding projects through the CEQA process while translating... Oh, no, okay, let me sit back.
No, you're good.
Okay.
I have to move back.
Okay. While translating technical jargon into messages for the public and elected officials, working to build consensus on both sides of issues and obtain approvals, all the while working to stay on schedule, on budget, and a lot of times, very importantly, to avoid litigation. I'm very passionate about what I do. This has provided me with a tremendous technical background, but it's also given me a solid understanding of finances. Everything from bond financing to the formation of community facility districts to infrastructure costs. During my career, I've had the opportunity to represent water districts. I've overseen infrastructure projects, reclaimed water projects, and natural treatment system projects. I had the privilege of representing Pebble Beach Company during a public-private partnership to build a reclaimed water facility where we were able to offer water entitlement to residential users. I've negotiated safe harbor agreements with federal and state agencies for the maintenance of facilities on projects like I just mentioned. My other role in my career is often that of a good listener, listening to questions and concerns from the community, listening to technical experts and staff present reports, and to questions and comments from decision makers, oftentimes having to provide thoughtful, measured responses on the spot. Costa Mesa is my home. I'm a lifelong Orange County resident, born and raised in Huntington Beach, and a proud UCI anteater. I approach life with the belief that you should give more than you get, and I have an eye to service. I sit on the UCI School of Social Sciences Dean's Board of Counselors, on the board of one of the state's largest foster adopt nonprofit organizations. I have a Brownie Girl Scout troop, and I'm active here in my parish in Costa Mesa. I feel that this position would be another way to give back and do it in my hometown. In closing, I believe my background and skills are a good fit for the board. I bring a working knowledge of boards and elected bodies. I understand the process, how decisions are made, and have a willingness and desire to learn more and be of service. If selected, I view this as a long-term commitment and am ready and able to hit the ground running. Owning my own business gives me the freedom to manage my own schedule. I do have the time to commit to this. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to our conversation and your questions.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, Director Fissler, would you like to lead us off, please?
Sure. Good afternoon, Maris. Nice
Hi,
to see you.
Nice to see you.
I don't think we've ever really met, but I watch all the city council and planning commission meetings, so I've seen you speak plenty of times. So my question to you is, what prompted you to apply, and I don't just mean the letter, but I mean to want to be on a board of directors at Mesa Water District?
Sure. As my career has evolved, and I've spent so much time and been very fortunate building a business and a reputation, I think I'm now at a point in my career where I've always had some vein, as I mentioned, of service or giving back and sitting on boards, and this seemed like a wonderful opportunity to throw my hat in the ring of something that was a next step for where I could see having more time to give than to spend working as I'm looking at, the third, fourth phase of my career. And this is a nice way to be able to do something that's very meaningful, where I have a skill set that I can use in my hometown. I think Costa Mesa is one of the most amazing jewels in Orange County, and the more people we can have espousing that, the better. And I see this as an opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Director Duane, if you please.
Thank you very much. I only have one question today, and that is, would you describe your understanding of the role of the board of directors?
Sure. The role here would be to, at the guidance of staff, primarily make sure you have a safe, reliable water source. From there, you tier off into financial stewardship, customer service, education, and also, this is a, 50-plus year organization, district in the community. I think it goes without saying that it's a pillar of Costa Mesa, and a part of that is also to represent the water district and what that represents for the area and the region as a forward-thinking organization.
Thank you. Director Bucknell, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this position is normally elected, and former Director Tamiaka resigned shortly into the beginning of his second term. The board had three options. We could allow the County Board of Supervisors to appoint, we could hold a special election, or we could appoint. And in the past, we've done the appointment process, and we created an appointment process that you're now participating in. However, the board's appointment is not for a full term. The board's appointment is until the next general election. The next general election is in November of 2018. This division of the district is normally elected in the presidential cycle. So to get back on its cycle, it will also have an election in the year 2020. So are you prepared to campaign vigorously for a publicly elected office twice in the next 3 years?
I think it's a large undertaking, but as you would have seen from my resume, I spent almost the first 10 years of my career running campaigns. I'm intimately familiar with what it takes to run a successful campaign. And I think this is something that I would be absolutely willing and dedicated, as well as I would throw my husband, although he hates it when I talk about him when he's not around, in with that as well, because that was my primary discussion with him, was not if I get appointed, it was that means running for public office. And so that was something I didn't consider lightly. That was probably at the top of my list when I considered throwing my hat in the ring. And to answer your question directly, yes, absolutely.
And would you consider running for public office even if not appointed?
Potentially.
Thank you.
Thank you. For my question, I've been observing the folks that have been looking at joining us here on the board as far as attendance at our recent meeting since the announcement came out that Director Tamiaka was leaving and that we would be appointing. And I don't recall seeing your face at any of the meetings in the last month. I'm wondering if you could share your thoughts on that with us.
Sure. It was by no means meant to be a slight. It's a pure schedule with summer wrapping up and two large projects ending and a combination of my travel schedule that got shoved into most of July and August. I just didn't have any availability, and I've had my calendar now free up, and I've actually been looking at it moving forward, but I did spend considerable time going through the strategic plan, the 2018 fiscal year budget, and other things. And in all honesty, I didn't read every line item in the budget. I read the overview, I read the letter, I read the general manager's statement. And so I did spend the time offline, not in attendance at a meeting, really trying to get up to speed. And that's why I made the effort to really reach out to Stacy and had a number of conversations with her and wanted to actually get on the ground and tour some facilities to really get a good understanding of how things are working and what programs are on deck right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Fissler, if you would, please.
As you know, we're guided as a board by a strategic plan. Most organizations are, although the city of Costa Mesa, for some reason, still doesn't have one. But what skills do you feel you bring to help us implement and expand potentially our strategic plan and to meet the 7 points of it, and then our overall general mission statement.
I was thinking about almost that exact question earlier. What would I change? And the answer I came up with staring at the window in my office was, I don't know that I would change much, I would continue. And so what would I continue? I think I bring a nice eye in terms of how do you maintain and shore up a brand, how do you grow a brand, how do you make a brand be one of those things that's recognized as a credible body, and I think the district has done a phenomenal job with that. I think the education and outreach is something that I'm very good at. It's what I do for a living, outreach and education on highly technical issues, and I think the district has done a tremendous job. The drought is a perfect example. The conservation ordinances and other things, as a resident and homeowner in Costa Mesa, they never felt punitive. They felt that it came across to me like there was an esprit de corps, that the district was working with the community. We're all in this together, and here are the things we're going to do to meet the 20%. So I think those are certainly aspects where I could help. I have a good eye for taking really technical information and making it understandable and approachable. I also believe in never turning down an opportunity to sit down with folks. A cup of coffee takes 15 minutes. I have a strong understanding of financing of things, and I think you guys have set a tremendous bar. And so in terms of how to keep moving forward with the strategic plan is also, it's probably a balance between the 10,000 foot projects and then playing a role as a regional leader at the 50,000 foot level, looking at what are reliable sources of water in the long term, and not just for the district, but for water. How does the district play a role in that? How do you further that? And I think they're all interwoven with building a brand, maintaining a good brand, and having credibility, and having people know who you are, and when they hear that, think something good. And I think you're in that position today.
Thank you.
Director Duane is asking only one question this afternoon, and so Director Bachmiller, if you would please.
Thank you. So, as a private citizen, your finances are private.
Mm-hmm.
As a public official, your finances become public. So Form 700 financial disclosure form, which would require you to disclose it.
Mm-hmm.
Clients or sources of income over a certain dollar limit. Are you prepared to deal with consequences of disclosing clients?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and for my final question, Mesa Water is a retail water agency within the government structures in Orange County. And we are an independent special district. Can you describe for me what the role of an independent special district is in the water industry?
Sure. This district was established to provide water to the geographic boundaries, which my readings tell me is about 100,000 users in the Costa Mesa area, and provide water, not garner a profit, maintain the infrastructure, take on capital improvements when necessary, provide new meters and connections when new development or redevelopment takes place, and oversee that water source, make sure it's safe. I'm using your words, safe, reliable, and provide that service to its ratepayers. It is the the trustor of water for Costa Mesa.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, do you have any questions for us?
No, thank you for your time. I'm available if anything else comes up, and wish you well in your deliberations and decision making.
And comments or questions from the board?
Thank you. No, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Pasquale.
Thank you.
We do appreciate your interest today.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, with that, gentlemen, you have I believe you have a chart for your top 5 candidates. We'll be filling those charts out so that at our next meeting on the 5th of September, we can discuss those top 5 and go forward from there. Hopefully we'll
What time is the meeting, September 5th?
3:30.
3:30?
What day is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, and we already cleared this, right?
Oh, so it's a couple weeks, a week from this coming Tuesday, day after Labor Day.
Yep. 3:30. Yep.
You can all come to his talk at 7:30 if you want.
It's not a lunch, is Doc Day? No. Okay. With that, are there any comments from the acting general manager? No.
So at the September, I have a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
So at the September 5th meeting, we are going to engage in a deliberation among ourselves in public and relay to each other and the public our top 5 for each of us.
Right. Well, actually, there's a step that goes before that. We'll have to ask the staff to contact those that are on our top 5 lists to make sure that they're at least aware that the meeting will be going on. So that's the one step that will go before.
And then at that meeting, are we going to try to reach consensus on a single candidate and name them?
Yes. Director Fisher.
That's a good idea to let the top 5 know, but I sure don't want the other 11 to hear nothing.
They will be receiving a letter.
Okay, to say that we've cut to 5 and they're not.
We appreciate their participation, but they're not moving forward.
Okay, good. I just don't want to.
Are we going to relay the 5 to you then? And so for example,
right.
I'm just making this up hypothetically, and let's just pretend that the 4 of us have the same 5 candidates, so the other 11 would be notified that they're not moving on and these 5 are moving forward. So in the interim between now and September 5th, we're going to tell you each of our 5. Got it. So theoretically, it's possible all 16 could come back, and there would be a possible of 20. Each of us had a different 5. 20 people could be named, and all 16 could be coming back, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So
unlikely, but correct.
Unlikely, but correct.
Okay, so that I thought maybe they were going to figure out the top 5 from some kind of weighted system. Like I said, 1 to 5, how many cards you're on, and multiply them.
No, I think that did not work out well at the city.
I'm just kidding.
If you have a black sock and a white sock, and
Yeah, if you have 3 black socks and 1 red sock, how many do you have to pull out till you have a match pair?
That'd be the square root of a red sock. Sorry, that's an inside engineer joke. Jim likes to make it.
Okay, so is everybody clear? We're going to provide our top 5 lists to Ms. Garcia, the district secretary, and we'll look at those as she provides them back to us prior to the September 5th meeting, so that we're prepared to discuss the relevance of our 5 as opposed to the other 3's 5, the rest of the board's 5.
Right.
Okay? So everybody clear?
I think we got it.
Any questions? Director Blackmore?
Mr. Morelli's patiently waiting. Does he have any questions?
Public comment. I may.
Public comment.
Amazing, I just need a clarification regarding your next step process. That's why I came a little bit late. I thought maybe you want to talk about it, or maybe you want to make a decision today. So really, that's the
We're at the earlier meeting. I don't recall whether you were in attendance or not, but the board decided that it would be a long enough day just with the interviews and the questions. We didn't want to try and come to a conclusion today. So at the September 5th meeting, we will discuss the top 5 candidates and come to a conclusion or consensus, hopefully at that point, and the selection will be made at the September 5th meeting. At least that's our intention today. Okay, so are there any other comments from the public? Any director's comments?
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you to staff for all your help today.
Stay floating. We're adjourned.